afternoon. I'd like to call this meeting of the Southampton Town Board to order on this 12th day of September 2023. Please rise if you're able and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. We're going to join together in a moment of silence on a number of things, but firstly, we're all aware that yesterday was the 22nd, believe it or not, anniversary of the September 11th acts of terrorism that devastated this country, and so many, 2,977 individuals died, including those in the building and those in the airplane, the airplanes, but also the firefighters who rushed in, including Town Attorney Jim Burke's brother was one of the firefighters. And I know this must be a very hard time every year, Jim, for you to remember Billy Burke.
Sure. Thanks, Jim. Yeah.
I didn't know anybody, but I knew a lot of people who lost relatives in the Twin Towers. And, and since then, according to the World Trade Center health program, over 71,000 people have been diagnosed with physical and mental health conditions brought on by the exposure to the dust, smoke, debris, and trauma of the 9/11 attacks. It was an event that changed this nation, changed the world in many ways, and I think it's important that we never forget. We never forget, and we stay vigilant in terms of defending our freedoms and protecting innocent people against heinous acts of terrorism. We will at some point, Jim, we're at the West Hampton Community Center, we're gonna do a memorial to the firefighters, as you know, and we're gonna specifically name your brother as an honoree there. We had there was a memorial in Hampton Bays, right, Rick, as well, and I think you wanted to share some poems from that.
Well, yeah, we'll do that a little bit later, but in the moment of silence today, if you could remember a local veteran in Hampton Bays, Lee Thomas Allen of Hampton Bays, who died on September 3rd at the age of 79. After a brief battle with cancer, he served in Vietnam. He left the service with an honorable discharge. His devotion to fellow veterans and community outreach motivated him to become an active member in the Kiwanis Club, West Hampton VFW, and the Hampton Bays American Legion, as also the active member of St. Mary's Episcopal Church. A lifelong student of nature, he contributed to the Quag Wildlife Refuge mission to educate the public about local wildlife. He's survived by his wife, Peggy, of 57 years, and his sons, Greg and Jason, along with siblings and grandchildren. I had the privilege of serving on the Kiwanis Club of Southampton with Lee for over 30 years. And if there was somebody I ever met that spread the seeds of community service throughout our town, it was Lee. Any event he went to, he worked with the young children, who I saw later get involved with community service groups in schools, including my kids. I served with them on scholarship committees and with food insecurities at our local food pantries for over 30 years. A more wonderful and community-minded gentleman I couldn't imagine meeting, so please keep him in your prayers.
So in remembrance of the innocent lives lost on September 11th, 22 years ago, as well as the memory of Lee Thomas Allen of Hampton Bays, let's join together in silence. Thank you. Please be seated. So I know, Rick, when did you want to share those poems?
Well, we can do it now if you like.
So, yeah, Rick had asked that some poems that children, are they poems or just writings?
Quick little essays, some are
Essays?
just, yeah. So yesterday, Cindy and I, Bridget Fleming, Assemblyman Thiel, all got to go to the Hampton Bays Elementary School for a 9/11 Remembrance Day, because everybody in the school from K through 12 weren't even born when 9/11 happened. So it's nice that Hampton Bays, along with their Veterans Months, also, has a remembrance of 9/11, and the kids write about it. So I'm asking that each of us read, one of the poems or one of the essays that they wrote. So I'll start off. This was from Mrs. Ferguson's class, Morgan Tuttle. Policemen and women showed their bravery by helping people escape the Twin Towers. Ambulances and first responders were on site to help injured people. Today is a day to remember and thank the heroes of 9/11. Remember the courageous men and women who risked their lives. Innocent people sadly lost their lives on 9/11. Ordinary people can be heroes too. Today we hold memorials and a moment of silence to honor these people. Dogs are heroes by searching for people in the rubble. My favorite line is, anyone can be a hero, you can too. Thank you.
Cindy, you want to go next?
Mine is by Vivian Razi. It's America. Amazing heroes live here. Many people risk their lives. Everyone should be treated equally. Remember the people who died. Individual people in our memories. Courageous people fought for our country. Americans fight for freedom.
So that was something that began with each of the letters.
Yeah.
So it's an acrostic poem.
All right, I'll read mine. Emma Kirst is the student who wrote this. First she asks, what is a hero? And she answers, a supernatural being fighting the odds and overcoming evil. Someone who would risk life and limb for someone they don't know. Someone tirelessly looking for a cure for a disease. A person who would help someone in need. Then she asks, what is a hero to me? A person who would help out no matter what the cost. Someone who opens arms willing to comfort others. Someone willing to work hard without recognition or compensation. And lastly, she asks, who can be a hero? A person born with a pure heart. And maybe that hero can be you or me, helping people in the small ways we can. John?
Well, I have one here has no name attributed to it, but it's Heroes, spelled Heroes. Heroes are found everywhere. They are helpful, caring, confident, brave, and fearless people. Everyone can be a hero by helping others. Risk their own lives to keep people safe. Outstanding heroes are courageous. Even when it's hard, heroes are brave and helpful. Someday you could be a hero too.
And lastly, Councilman Scavone.
Thank you to the firefighters for helping us on these days that we need it. The helpful things firefighters do helps everyone in the community because there are people who do bad things to scare us, like what happened on September 11th. It is good that we have firefighters in our community who look out for us. Thank you, firefighters, for helping us. And that came from Luciano Soledad, I'm assuming from Miss or Mr. Fritz's class. Very nice, and thank you.
So, thank you for reading them, and all 135 kids in the class wrote something. These were the 7 who were chosen to read them out loud yesterday, so
Thank you,
I think
Rick.
it was a nice day for everybody.
Jim, I know you attended something in New York, right? Yes, you do every year.
Yes.
But none of us on this board was as affected as you were. It hit home, but particularly, it really hit home for you. Do you want to say anything about your building?
Well, just typically, sometimes I go down at Ground Zero, but a lot of times I just go to where my brother's house was in Engine 21 on 40th Street. And there's some of the men that were with him that day. He was up on the North Tower and he saw the South Tower collapse, and he ordered his men who were a few floors below him to get out. And then he stayed back with a man in a quadriplegic in a wheelchair. But all his men survived. And then there was another ladder company that he also told those guys to get out, and they survived. His men and his other ladder company just got out as the North Tower was collapsing. So I see his men every year, sometimes more than once a year. And these are the people that, and I've seen their families now, and I've seen their kids. Some of these kids that weren't even born on 9/11, 2001. And these, and the wives look at me and they know that if not for my brother, these kids wouldn't be here, So that's kind of a moment that I take, and I see a lot of the children of the rescue workers. They've had this camp, America's Camp, that my kids were lucky to go to. And you see a lot of the kids who are now, 25, 30 years old, and they're doing, so many of them were surrounded and enveloped with love after 9/11, and now have taken that and have projected it out, have passed that forward. And it's really amazing to see so many of them become firefighters and police officers, but nurses and doctors and medical people, and people who have just passed it on because they were so surrounded by it during those 5-10 years after. So it's amazing to see, and so many have become such amazing individuals. So it was a terrible day, but it was also at the same time, there was a lot of good that came from it, and the amazing response. It was a terrible moment, but the amazing response from ordinary people who just risked their lives to save other people that day. It's just, and stories still come out, of heroism and goodness, so.
We're sorry for your loss, Jim,
Yeah, thanks, Jay.
and we thank you for your service. I know your brother would be very proud
Yeah.
of the work you're doing here.
Yeah, thank you.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Supervisor Schneiderman.
Present.
Councilwoman McNamara. Present. Councilman Martell.
Present.
Councilman Bouvier.
Here.
Councilman Scavone.
Present.
Okay. The first order of business, let me make a motion to approve the minutes of our regular town board meeting of August 22nd, 2023.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Madam Clerk, would you kindly read the communications?
The following communications have been received in the office of the town clerk. We have received public notices from the Association of Towns, a notice of the 2024 annual meeting and training school on February 18th through the 21st. Town of Southold, notice of adoption. New York State liquor license 30-day advance notice to local municipalities from 2 new applications for 89 Peconic Avenue, Riverhead, and 51 Pine Neck Avenue in Sag Harbor. Financial disclosure statements were filed from the listed individuals, and emails, letters, and postcards and land use applications were received regarding the following: Bel Air Cove Motel, 20 Shinnecock Road, Hampton Bays, change of zone application entitled Liberty Gardens, Southampton, CPF acquisition of Lovelady Powell property in the village of North Haven, dumping of clean fill at Old Country Road, West Hampton, planning board matter of proposed firehouse substation, Watermill, proposed lease of town land for wireless structure, Majors Pass, Southampton, proposed lithium battery storage facility in Hampton Bays, zoning board matter of Lumber Lane A, LLC, Bridgehampton. Zoning Board of Appeals applications have been received regarding these 2 properties, one at 43 Dune Road, East Quogue, and 62 Noyak Harbor Road, Noyak. The following bid was opened on August 23rd, 2023 at 2 p.m. for a Ford F-250 Super Duty Parks and Recreation Department. And that concludes the communications for this meeting's agenda.
All right, thank you, Cindy. Okay, we have requests for several walk-ons. I'd like to split it up, though, into 2 separate votes. So they're numbered 1 through 5. I'd like to take 1, 3, 4, and 5 as a unit. So that would be 44197, which is sponsored by Councilman McNamara and co-sponsored by Councilman Schiavone, to accept intermunicipal donation of a motor vehicle for the police department from the village of Quogue. 44202, sponsored by Councilman McNamara and co-sponsored by myself. It's a notice of public hearing to accept a deed of dedication in connection with a subdivision known as Map of Chicken Briar in Eastport. Then 44203, which is our 17th warrant. And then Councilman Martell is sponsoring 44208, authorizing disbursement from the Blight Mitigation Fund for site cleanup and at, I guess, 308 Riverlay Avenue and 21 Private Road in Riverside. So let me make a motion to walk those 4 resolutions on. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, this requires 4 out of 5, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, so those 4 are on. Now, the one I pulled out of the packet, 44199, would authorize the supervisor to sign a memorandum of agreement with the trustees. So let me speak to this for a second. So there is a bill pending before the governor to allow us an additional 1 year to effectuate a trustee tax line. The trustee tax line really requires a clear understanding between the 2 bodies in terms of how those monies will be expended, how assigned town employees will be managed and disciplined, and a clear understanding of all the separate roles and responsibilities of each, who is doing what and how are they being compensated. We have been working for months and months and months on that memorandum of agreement. I've had many meetings with the board. I've had many meetings with, particularly with trustee President Scott Horowitz, who is here. We as a body have extended a memorandum of agreement that we thought would satisfy the town board. On the advice of council, they took away many of the provisions. And we came back with a shorter version, and on the advice of council, they pared that back as well. I brought that to the town board and did not get a sense from the town board that there was enough protections for the town. So I'm out of time. I'm just out of time. I have to submit the town proposed budget. Without a authorization from this body to sign that memorandum, I can't sign a memorandum of agreement. So this is really a 11th hour request to allow me to sign an agreement under some circumstance, which we can debate or not. If I do not secure the authorization to sign an agreement, there's nothing left that I can do other than ask the governor for more time. If the board feels they're ready to enter into agreement under certain circumstances, then I can turn to the trustees and ask them to get authorized to sign the same agreement. And again, it would only be a few days. If they were not able to do that, we will then need the additional year. So that's what this resolution is. It's just simply to give this town supervisor the ability to enter into that memorandum agreement. We've worked very hard on a budget, which is referenced throughout this agreement as Schedule A. We've engaged the services of Len Marchese, our former controller, to assist with that, as well as our town controller, Dorothy Godlewski. So I think we have reached a relative understanding on the budget, but the underlying agreement, we have not. So I would ask that the board allow, well, it's a prerogative of the chair. I would like to recognize the president of the trustees, Scott Horowitz, who is here, who would like to address the board, has requested the opportunity to address the board at this juncture. So, Scott?
Good afternoon, Mr. Supervisor, members of the board, other elected officials from the public, and the public that is here on such a day. I would like to take the opportunity to remember Arthur Jones, who graduated with us at the Hampton Bays High School. Was a great guy. Should never be forgotten. You know, Mr. Burke, you kind of struck a nerve with me, you know, in a good way. It's of how the country, we all came together as a result of the terrible, terrible act, and there was some good. And I'm here with you today as the president of the trustees to have a productive conversation in the same type of spirit that was born out of such a horrific event. Sorry, that's my town bat phone here. Sorry, I thought I turned that off. So, you know, we have worked hard. The trustees have worked very, very hard in going through this exercise, which in my opinion, in the 10 years that I've served on the Board of Trustees, one of the most important exercises that we could have done for the people of the town is to implement this law that currently sits, to make transparent the expenses out of the general fund that the folks are incurring right now as I'm standing here speaking to you today, and the services are solidified for the trustees. This is important because today there's so much pressure on water quality and pressure on all of our natural resources and public access. And for our township, it's the Board of Trustees that is right directly in that wheelhouse to protect and defend this in the interest of all the freeholders and commonality. And that's a responsibility that I take very, very carefully. Now, if you look at the history of this board, which predates the formation of the country, you have the King James II and the Dongan Patent granting certain easements on the ocean that are important to everybody in the town, and you have all the underwater lands and some of the roads. You've had many battles that have been fought and won by the trustees, some lost and some won. There was a lot of information that came out of the appellate court unanimously, and a lot of research was done, and we should learn from that. There were also other disagreements that were terrible disagreements between the town and the trustees back in the 90s that were settled. Here we're at a spot in time where you have a unanimous decision by the New York State Senate and a unanimous decision by the New York State Assembly, a signature of a bill into law by the governor that grants the trustees an independent tax line on the tax bill for transparency and stability. It was always understood by me that the importance was to get this as a budget neutral exercise. And as I stand here today, these expenses are being borne by the general fund. Whether we have an agreement or we don't, these monies are being expended in a non-transparent basis. It makes sense that we make it transparent and that we make it stable in the best interest of the people of this town for generations to come, and that we learn from past experiences and we resolve those matters. I came to you on June the 1st, okay, asking you to hold off on sending that home rule message. My board, in a very cohesive fashion, worked together unanimously and put together a document utilizing numbers that came out of the town comptroller's office to provide what we believed was a budget neutral exercise. We don't want to take services away from the Parks Department. They do a fabulous job. From the Police Department. I started as my first job as a part-time constable working for the town. I got sent to the police academy. I was out on the road for a while. I have full respect, and I don't want anybody, any department, to suffer. And no one should, because these expenses are being borne as we speak. All we're asking for is transparency to the public and stability for the trustees, that they can continue to protect water quality, natural resources, and public access in the best interest of the public. I have the pleasure of serving with a fantastic group of people that have worked very hard together, okay? Many of them are endeavoring higher office. They care about the public and the community, and I gotta tell you, it's been a pleasure. We've put a lot into it. We've delivered a budget, and we're planning to have a public hearing on time and neutral. And I'm here to work with you in any way that I can in the best interest of the people of the town. What I think is something that we should not do is we should not undo anything that was set in stone by the Dongan Patent, by any of the battles that were won by the trustees, by decisions that were unanimously made by the appellate court. I think we should, as citizens with a responsibility, work together to do the best that we can to get this done now. This should have happened contractually in the 90s. It did not. And I think at some point in time, you have to just say, we have to get it done. And there's no better reason than we currently have a bill that's been signed into law. And it's been my understanding that an MOA is not part of that arrangement. It was about budget neutrality. And that, to my knowledge, in discussions, has been accomplished, okay? There needs to be minor tweaks. That's normal that you make minor tweaks. But the reality is that a shared services agreement that locks that in for the trustees and makes it so that for generations to come, they can discharge their responsibility is what's important. In my view, it's not appropriate to utilize any form of leverage in any way, shape, or form to diminish what the trustees have strived to gain and build on. This is a time for us to come together and really do the best job that we can. We don't need another year. We've spent a tremendous amount of time and a tremendous amount of trust revenue to get this document square and get this relationship to be a great relationship. We're here in good faith. I'm here in good faith with the full backing of my board to collaborate with you on getting this implemented and getting it on the tax bill without delay, without diminishment of any services to the police, to the parks, to any department in the town, and to do it transparently and appropriately. Okay, so I'm here. If you want me to answer any questions, I'm more than happy to. I feel very strongly about this. I've talked about this for a decade, and throughout the course of that decade, I became a grandfather. I serve as a trustee proudly. I care about the generations. I do have a bachelor's in environmental studies. I have a law enforcement background. I've been a licensed captain. I run a business. I like to get things done. And if you know me, I served for many years as a member of the Big Brothers Big Sisters organization, on their board, at the point now where I'm on the emeritus board, and I've always believed it was better to figure out what you can do to help somebody versus what you're going to do to somebody. And I'm asking you to collaborate with our board to do the best we can to get this board where it needs to be, financially stable and transparent and providing the services that are very important. I'm here to tell you we're there right now. We should not delay, and we should not in any way, shape, or form try and diminish any of those battles that were won. That's not going to be in the best interest of the people of this town in any way, shape, or form. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me see if any board members have any questions.
Just a comment that anything written by the King of England is not set in stone in this country. That's all.
Well,
You don't have to comment, Scott. That's
Well,
all.
listen, there has been through various iterations of
Okay.
the state constitution, the preservation of these prior agreements.
Good, then
And-
say that.
Is
Thank
that
you.
fair? Thank you. I'm here in the best interest of the public. I believe it's important. I've worked 10 years on this. I see no reason why a lack of transparency and stability benefits anybody. And I was here on June 1st, and I'm here today. We have the numbers. There is no provision in that law that requires an MOA. And it's not, in my opinion, to the best advantage of the town board, the town trustees, or anyone in the public. Shared services agreement, reasonable, document back and forth where you're sharing services, absolutely that makes sense, but not,
Excuse me, Scott,
Sure.
you say you don't believe that we should have an MOU?
I'm saying we
Well,
should-
hold on, it's the very document that we've been negotiating with you guys for 40-plus hours over the last 6 months. So I'm a little concerned that we've wasted all this time for something that you don't think is needed.
No, let me clarify that. An
And by the way,
MOU,
I'd like the public to know that anything that we discuss here, we can't get into the details because it's privileged. This has been discussed and negotiated on two sides for a long time.
Right.
We've reached a point where we cannot go any farther because we've run out of time because of the way the statute is written. It does not deny the tax line. It just puts it off for a year. And hopefully a new board, trustee board, like as you alluded to, and a new town board may get together and do that right. But there's so much detail, and you're absolutely right. It's so important to this board and to the town residents how this memorandum gets together, that we can't just rush something through until we're all satisfied.
with all due respect.
And I'm not going
Yeah.
to
I
enter into
understand.
debate. I'm just making a
I
statement.
understand, let me address that.
Well, but
I-
you don't really need to at this
But
point.
I feel it's important for in the best interest of the public. Let's start at the genesis. Sorry.
Okay.
But the genesis,
back to
the genesis was a home
I
rule.
apologize,
another
I
hour?
brought that
Are we
up.
going back to what,
No,
1686?
yeah, well, we are, but
Here for public hearings and.
At a
With all
out of
due
respect, if
we
you
have
could
the
let me
president of the
finish.
trustees here.
Let
you
me
know,
finish,
they-
let me finish my comment. I was at work and the supervisor called me and suggested I come down and address the board, and I left my regular job to come here and take the time to address you. You know, we all sent a home rule message
have.
that we were going to,
You've done that.
that we were going to engage in a certain fashion. We sent a home rule message that we were gonna do good things for the public. Well, that's what we did. I have no problem with a document, a reasonable document of a memorandum of agreement. But what I've been hearing and where the problem is, and it's a matter of public knowledge, it's a stipulation that people keep trying to kill. And to kill this stipulation for something that was signed by the
Again, can I
current.
remind you, sir, that this is privileged, and anything that you bring up, I'm going to evoke privilege right now. We are not negotiating here.
I'm not
Well,
negotiating with
then
you,
you
sir. I'm
need
just
to be
trying to
very
provide.
careful, sir, about what you're saying and the
I-
details of it, because you will violate privilege.
I would not speak to anything other than a public document with public knowledge that the press is well aware of and anybody can foil for. It was a public stipulation. It was signed by our current assemblyman, who was the supervisor at the time, that gave a certain working agreement between the town and the trustees to resolve an issue that occurred in the 90s.
1985.
So, and I have respect for Assemblyman Thiel, and he saw the need to get us on solid financial ground. We were lucky that he got it through the Assembly and the Senate, and the governor signed it. And for us to not honor what somebody.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt you again, but I just feel this is not appropriate to
Okay.
have this discussion
Okay.
here. You've made your statement, and we've heard it. We all really want the same thing. We're talking about a timeline, and we should move on.
Okay, but I feel that we're good now. I feel that we're on good now.
And you're entitled to feel that way.
Okay, and the other thing that I just want to point out to you, because I feel this is very important, is that that law does not provide for the need for any document other than us presenting a budget neutral, and we've done that. And I really think we owe it to the public to implement it, and I think it's a mistake to kick this can down the road for another year. I came here in good faith to have a productive conversation with you. I don't want to have a debate. I'm here in the best interest of everybody. So if there's no more questions, I'll let you move on with your meeting, and I'll continue to do the best that I possibly can representing my board and the people of the town.
As we will. Thank you, Scott.
Okay, is
Appreciate
there
it.
anything else?
Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay, thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Okay,
I do have a comment before we go on. A number of times, the speaker mentions a non-transparent process, but it's my understanding that at least on the town side, this is not a question, Scott, so you can have a seat. On the town side, we allocate monies to the trustees, and that is fully transparent. Where that money comes from and how it is spent. We agree on that, right?
And
It's a matter of fact. I mean, it's-
And if I may, 3 months ago, we were at a point where we had 2 weeks to hammer out an agreement before this was signed. It's now been 3 months, it's gone back and forth, hours have been put into this. It's not to say that this board has 100% operated in good faith, we've put in the time, we have outlined, if anyone would like to ask for, see it, We have an outline of all of the hours and the time and the meetings that were canceled and the meetings that went through and the requests that were made and not answered. So it is by no fault of this board that in 3 months we were not able to come to an agreement. There are things that we continue to disagree on. There are things that we need to provide protections for the taxpayers, and we're not there. So the next best thing is to, like the supervisor said, new board, new trustees, and we have all next year to work on this.
I'm going to comment only on the aspect of whether an MOA is needed. And I can't speak for Assemblyman Thiel, but it has been certainly my understanding that you have to have a document in place before we hand over $1 million+ in public funds to this new trustee line, which sort of makes very clear the understanding of how that money will be spent and what the respective roles of both these bodies are. So I believe it is a necessary step. And without this memorandum of agreement, I don't see how you can do the tax line. And seeing that we were struggling to get this in place is what precipitated, if that's the word, created the need for this extension bill. We had hoped that during the time between the passage of the Assembly and Senate bill and the signature or not signature of the governor, we would be able to sort this out. And we've worked diligently to try to reach an agreement. It's just that we haven't been able to do so. It's not for lack of trying. And I think, to me, it's a little bit unfortunate because I would have liked to have this done while I was supervisor because I think it is important. I think the role that the trustees play is really a critical one for the town. They are not only the stewards of the underwater lands, but they are the protectors of public access. And public access is under constant threat. And we need an independent body fighting for public access. And the current situation, as I prepare my budget for my proposed budget for next year, I'm cognizant of the fact that a supervisor at odds with the trustees could defund the trustees. They could cease to exist. And with that arrangement, they're never on anything close to equal footing. They were created, I don't know, maybe 60 years before the town incorporated. I have to check the dates on each one. So they're an important historic body, and nobody is trying to undermine the trustees. And I think we all recognize the vital role that they play, and it will become, I think, more vital in the future. So I'm a little bit sad that I wasn't able to personally get this done. This is something I believe in. I hope it happens. I'll be off the board at the end of the year. If I'm not able to walk this on and I'm not able to get the power to enter into an agreement, and even if I do get that power, I'm not sure the president will be able to get the power to enter the same agreement. I have no choice in my mind at that point than to request the governor sign the bill, giving us another year to sort it out. It's not the position I wanted to be in, but that's the stark reality of the moment. So with that, I will make a motion to walk on 44199, authorizing the supervisor to sign a memorandum of agreement with the trustees. Is there a second? Going once is going twice, going 3 times. All right, it fails for lack of a second. So. Okay, so next we are going to public hearings. Now, I want to make sure the public is aware this is a hybrid meeting. So we started doing this during the pandemic, and we've continued doing it to give the public greater access to their elected officials. So we will, in each case, have an introduction of each public hearing. The clerk will read it first. Usually somebody from the town will open things up. I will take the folks here at Town Hall first. Each person is afforded 3 minutes to make their comments known. The clerk will let you know when you're down to your last 3 minutes. I'm sorry, last 30 seconds. And when we've exhausted our present audience, we'll go to our online audience. Okay, if you wish to speak at the public hearing, we ask that you fill out one of the yellow cards. And there's also cards for public portion, which will follow the public hearings. So, Madam Clerk, would you read the first public hearing notice?
Public hearing number 1, regarding the lease of town land for the purpose of the design, construction, and management of a wireless communications structure.
All right, Assistant Town Attorney Mark McRedmond will introduce this. We also have former Controller Len Marchese, who has been on special assignment on this project here to assist us as well.
That's right, and there also are 3 representatives from Tower Point, the cell phone tower company as well, and they're here to answer any questions that the board has or any members of the public may have. This public hearing is regarding the construction and management of a cell phone tower that would be located, that's the graphic over there, in the area outlined in red, if you can see it, which is the North Sea Transfer Station located at 1370 Majors Path. An RFP was put out in part because of, at best, spotty cell phone reception in that area, and the need for residents to be able to place, in particular, emergency calls if need be, and to feel confident that they can have good reception when they do. The schematics over here actually show a little more detail, and if need be, the representatives from Tower Point can speak to them. This one here shows the proposed monopole cell phone tower, which is actually 140 feet. I believe the schematic has it at 120, but it would cut a relatively narrow profile as opposed to a lattice structure. And the proposed location is in an area that's far enough from residences, but would, due to the height of the ground in the area and the location, transmit quite well. The representatives at Tower Point believe, and I believe our engineers do as well. I have a proposed lease agreement that's been drafted by Tower Point that I've looked over. I can get into any of the details on that that the board wishes me to. There is the possibility that approximately $10,000 a month would come in profit if the cell phone tower were up and operating, and it would be built and managed at the expense of Tower Point. There are some other issues with a right of first refusal regarding another company, but I don't know if the board wishes me to get into greater depth with the lease or to hand things off regarding the financials to Mr. Marchese or to anyone from Tower Point who wishes
Just
to
a quick
speak.
question in terms of how we arrived at Tower Point. There was an RFP, correct, process, and they were the lowest bidder, is that correct? Or highest bidder?
That's right.
Highest bidder.
You're right.
In this case,
Right, and actually, in this case, it's
Highest bidder.
almost that they were a hybrid. They were the lowest in the sense that past cell phone towers had required the town to kick in a significant capital contribution for them to build the tower or to break it up over the period of lease. That's not the case with Tower Point. They're bearing the full brunt of the construction costs. So in that sense, they're low. But in the sense that they could bring in at least $10,000 a month to the town, they're high. So you're correct. They're the highest responsible bidder.
and I think you mentioned 140 feet. I had recalled 120 feet. Did we add another 20 feet to
You're
this?
right.
And-
I believe we did, yes.
No, was that something that was in the original?
I don't think it was in the
RFP,
original. I
so
think the
just-
original was, as this schematic shows, 120. I think it was determined that the 140 could broadcast better.
But I just want to make sure we're not running afoul of other bidders because we've changed from the original RFP.
Right, and that's, something I'll look into, but I do believe the original RFP was for 120.
Right, because somebody might have looked at it and said, that's not tall enough for me.
Right.
I'm not gonna bid. So-
Right, and I'll have to check, because I don't know if there was a range or if it was capped at 120.
Okay, well, just look at that, so,
I sure will.
okay. Other questions for Mr. McRedmond? Okay, is there anyone else who, part of the initial presentation, wants to speak? If not, I'll go to the public. All right, Mr. McRedmond, why don't you have a seat? I have I'm not, I don't believe any of the cards I have are for this public hearing. Just raise your hand if you want to speak at this public hearing regarding the proposed cell tower at the former North Sea landfill site, the transfer station site. Okay, I don't see any. If you're watching this from home or other remote location, and you wish to speak at the first public hearing on a proposed cell tower at the North Sea Transfer Station, now is the time to click the raise hand icon, usually found at the bottom of your screen, and we will bring you in. And it looks like we do have some.
You like me to go ahead? I wasn't
Yes,
sure.
yeah, start,
Okay.
if you could tell us your name first.
Sure. My name is Jill Franco, and I'm a resident of the town in Watermill, and I happen to be an attorney. So I just share that I have that perspective. Once an attorney, you can never, leave that mindset behind. But I'm also a parent of two now young women who are very tiny in the town through teenage years. And I should start by saying thank you to all of you for serving the town. And I was very moved by the earlier statements relating to 9/11, public service, especially our police and fire fighters, et cetera. But this public issue relates to that, frankly. I have spent the last dozen years wondering why in Southampton town do we have worse cell coverage than when I've traveled to remote countries in the world. And I'm not exaggerating. Long Island is not, some obscure place, maybe anymore. The King of England was referenced earlier, perhaps then. But I really have worried over the years. Everything from the simplest thing as children in our community who now have cell phones, being able to get in touch with parents in a situation of an emergency. I know a young woman who was assaulted in our community. There was a trial relating to that. It was a serious criminal event. Thank God she was able to reach her mother and the police. In my own home, if the power goes out and I do not have Wi-Fi, I do not have cell coverage. My house has been hit by lightning. These are things that happen in our community, not to mention the number of people in our community who have shared with me their fear of riding bikes anymore because of people texting. You fall on your bike, you get hit, you can't even make a phone call. Yet alone, people spend a good amount of time doing all of the things you referenced protecting, our waterways, etc. But the beauty of living in this area is being able to enjoy them. But every time I go out to do something on the water myself and I bring my cell phone, I think to myself, great, but it may not work.
30 seconds.
So I just share with you that I think it's a public responsibility on your part as the board, but I also think that I've spoken to firefighters, police officers, and they all agree that, in 2023, everyone should have good cell coverage in this type of town. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else online, Charles?
sir.
Okay, Jim, in terms of, are we able to close this?
Yeah, I think we can close it.
Yeah.
You want it, we'll just look into that, the question you raised, Mr. Supervisor, about the bidding.
Right.
but,
So, and, you know, it's very clear that we need better phone coverage. I mean, I travel around this town.
I could mention on that, just on the RFP.
Yeah, just let me just say this, because I'm obviously on the road quite a bit, and calls drop all the time. It's very frustrating, and if, God forbid, you had to call 911, if you couldn't get through. So there is a huge public safety issue here, quality of life issue. In the past, cell towers have always been controversial. There were these giant, lattice structures, blinking lights, but today's infrastructure, these monopoles, they look like flagpoles where all the structures are inside. That's what's being proposed here in an area that really suffers from a lack of coverage. So I just wanted to say that, yes, there were some revenues here, $10,000 a month, which will go a long way to helping keep taxes from going up. But there is a compelling public safety purpose as well.
Yeah,
So-
the RFP, when we did the RFP, we looked for proposals from the vendors. So they proposed what they're proposing. Others proposed other things. So we didn't restrict, like we didn't say this is what you had to have. And then, so they proposed this and we've accepted it. In addition to the monthly revenue, you get a revenue for each of the providers, the carriers that are on the tower. Well, they're gonna also provide us with a capital contribution once the certificate of occupancy is issued. And there's a plan, Supervisor, to kind of look throughout the town where there's other shortages and to come back here again as time progresses. We wanted to do one at a time to enhance cell service throughout the whole town. So there is a plan in place to do one at a time and then move ahead with this whole process.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, I'll make a motion to close public hearing number 1.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, public hearing number 1 is closed. All right, the next one is going to be quite a bit more lengthy. Madam Clerk, would you read the second public hearing notice?
Public hearing number 2, to consider aquatic habitat restoration and non-point source abatement and control projects proposed for 2023 Community Preservation Fund, CPF, 20% water quality improvement plan funding.
All right, thank you, Sunday. So while Ms. Fenlon gets ready, I think most of our public is familiar at this point with the Community Preservation Fund, which is a transfer tax when properties are transferred, acquired, that the buyer pays. It's 2%. Today, there's also the housing fund as well, but of the 2% tax, 20% of it is reserved for water quality projects. And we review through our technical advisory committee various proposals and make recommendations. We've already done those related to sewers, I guess, so to IA systems, the last batch, wastewater projects. So now we are reviewing everything else, and it looks like you're ready. So Jacqueline Fenlon, our CPF program manager, will introduce us.
Yes. Good afternoon, Mr. Supervisor and Town Council members. It's a pleasure to be here today. We are today reviewing the second group of public hearings, so we tried to separate them and essentially have apples to apples while you're reviewing these, but these are the aquatic habitat restoration and non-source abatement and control projects that are being considered for water quality funding this year. So we do have 12 applications here, 3 of which are from the Southampton Village, which are towards the end, which I hope we can also have those presented together to save time because they're very similar. Those are the bioswales at the end. We also have 2 from the Village of Quogue, and the mayor is here today. So if we could also take those possibly number 2 and number 8 together so he could present those at the same time, I think that would save on time. So I'll just go over the basic applications that we have and the amount of funding. So with these proposals, the 12 ones, they do hit the categories of reduction, remediation, and restoration. Some of them accomplish 2 goals. So you do have the summary sheets which have been distributed to you. So the pink tab is where we're starting at today's hearing. which is starting with Tiana Bay restoration. And then you also have the recommendation memo that was diligently worked on by our staff and the Water Quality Advisory Board Committee. So our projects will start on page 10, so you guys can read along with the projects. So the first public hearing, number 1, is Tiana Bay Habitat Restoration. So this is an aquatic habitat restoration which impacts Shinnecock Bay West, and that is an applicant and sponsored by Cornell Cooperative Extension Marine Program, and that is requested for $179,148. Next is Quantuck Bay Flupsy and Oyster Relay planting. So this is also aquatic habitat restoration for Quantuck Bay and Quogue Canal, brought to you by the applicant and sponsor Village of Quogue for $102,659. Number 3 is Shellfish Production and Restoration Improvement. This is aquatic habitat restoration as well, impacting the watersheds of North Sea Harbor, Little Peconic Bay, and the Alewife Drain. The project sponsor for this one is Conscience Point Shellfish Hatchery Incorporated, and the requested funding is $151,665. The next one, number 4, is Engineering and Design Services for Watermill Fish Passage at Old Mill Road. So this is also aquatic habitat restoration, which would impact Mill Pond watershed, and this is brought to you by the Board of Trustees of the Town of Southampton for $174,550. Number 5 is Shoreline Softening and Habitat Enhancement. This is also aquatic habitat restoration, which would impact Shinnecock Bay, and it's brought to you by the project sponsor of Cornell Cooperative Extension for $45,358. Number 6 is Reducing Groundwater Nitrogen Input into Sagaponack Lake, which is phase 3 of this project. This is a non-point source abatement project and control that would impact the watershed of Sagaponack Pond, and this is brought to the board by the sponsor Peconic Land Trust for $531,011. Next is number 7, which is Cedar Ave and Bayview Drive North, which is stormwater improvement. This is also a non-source abatement and control. This would impact Sag Harbor Bay and has been brought to you by the North Haven Manor Association. And that requested funding is $53,145. Number 8 is Stormwater Runoff and Bioswale Project. This is also a non-source abatement and control project for the watersheds of Quantuck Bay, Ogden Pond, Quogue Canal, and Penniman Creek. This is brought to you by the Village of Quogue for $885,750. And then number 9, 11, and 12 are similar bioswales that are proposed by the Village of Southampton. They are all non-point source abatement projects. So the first one, Old Town, is $435,894. Phillips Pond Bioswale is for $194,608, and Wickapog Watershed Bioswales is for $235,113. And then so finally, Conscience Point is also seeking $25,000 for stormwater improvement and design for Conscience Point parking lot in North Sea, impacting the watershed of North Sea Harbor and Little Peconic Bay, also non-point source abatement. So those are the projects before you this afternoon.
All right. So there's a couple that our advisory committee didn't recommend full funding for, but for the most part, most of the projects they did. But there's a few that they recommended lesser. Should we draw those distinctions or just go through?
I think it would be best to let them present their projects, and if you have
Okay.
any specific questions.
Okay,
I
and then we
think
have Ms. Davis here too, so we
Yes,
can get
And
clarification.
the chair, Stephanie Davis, is here, and Anthony Graves is here as well, if you have any questions
Okay.
regarding their review of the projects. Yeah.
Okay, and in terms of the total request,
We don't have the total request for tonight's hearing, but
well,
it's summarized at the end of
I guess maybe
your-
my question is, in terms of the total availability of funds.
Yes,
Uh,
we do currently, I have those numbers and figures I can discuss with you, so that you're aware of that. I was
Okay.
actually hoping to bring that to you at a later date.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, because in terms of analyzing whether we can make the award, we need to
Mhm.
know that we have
Absolutely, yeah,
the money in the bank.
yeah,
So, okay.
absolutely, yeah.
Fair enough. All right, so I do have a couple of cards that were filled out. Is that what you're recommending? I do it
Yeah, I guess
this
if we
way?
could start with
Or should I
the-
just go through each
Yeah,
one and ask
I
if
think let's
somebody?
go in
Go
order,
through,
and then if there's anyone from the
question might be
public.
specific to one of those.
Yeah.
All right, we can try to go through orders, in the order. All right, so the first one, Tiana Bay Habitat Restoration. Is there anyone who wanted to be heard on this?
Yeah, it's Kim Barber.
Okay.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for having us here today. I'm Kim Barber with Cornell Cooperative Extension Marine Program. I'm here with my colleague Harrison Toby, who heads up our Bay Scallop restoration work, and our Marine Program Director, Chris Pickerel, is in the audience as well. So we're here today to support our proposed project to basically build upon and expand the work we've been doing for the past 2 years with our initial CPF program reward, which we appreciate very much. We've seen a lot of success in our shellfish and habitat restoration work that we've done under that grant, as well as a lot of our public education and outreach initiatives. So what you see in front of you in terms of what we're proposing for this round is a scaled down version of that. We were able to, as last time I mentioned when I was up here 2 years ago, we've successfully leveraged additional funding to help supplement the work that we're doing there. That's essentially why we're able to, this year, without CPF funding in place, continue our eelgrass restoration plantings, and we'll be doing another deployment of our spat-on-shell oyster reef this coming fall as well. But with the influx of money from this current round that we're hoping to obtain, we'd be able to get back in the mix with our Bay Scallop restoration work, and again, touch on all those different restoration methodologies that we did in the first project. So we're here to answer any questions that you might have on the proposal or even the past project that we just wrapped up this summer.
Any questions?
Just one question. The rain garden is in the parking lot, you're saying?
Yes, so if
Okay.
you're headed back towards the spat line, that bigger parking lot island, we haven't addressed that. We've been speaking with Kristen and Parks for years about, I think there's just some abandoned, drainage situation there that it would benefit, significantly from a little bit of an overhaul. So that's a big part of this current proposal.
Yeah, and I think hopefully, although this year might be difficult, is to repair the chain link over the sand or over the sand to get through to that as well. So it's starting to show. I take personal pleasure out of watching this site grow because it's one of the first ones that I started when I got it.
Yes, we
when I got
appreciate
it.
all your
And
support over the years.
It's been fun, and watching it grow has been good, and you guys have done a lot. There's been a lot of success there, outgrowth from it
Thank
as
you,
well,
yes.
so. But that's the one thing I really, want to work with Paris to try to get that fixed.
Absolutely, and we that it's not specifically related to this proposal, but we are working with the state and federal entities as well, with Marty in Natural Resources too, to try to figure out the best solution for removing that gabion and potentially even applying in the future for a CPF project to do a whole living shoreline there. But step one needs to be removal of that whole system.
Good, I just want to be sure that you guys were involved in
Oh,
that.
it's on our radar, and we're excited to see it happen. Hopefully, there's just a little bit of jurisdictional things that we're trying to work through. But
Oyster
yes.
farmers will be quite pleased.
Yes.
Yes, I mean, it is. It's a risk too to our SPAT members, as you know, Sunday. Yes, and we've had cuts and issues on it too. So, despite the whole ecological, impacts of it, it's actually kind of a little bit of a health risk as well for the property.
All right, thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
All right, so we're still on this Tiana Bay Habitat Restoration. Was there anyone else who wished to be heard on this one? Okay, thank you.
Okay, great.
Um,
Thank you.
And the Technical Advisory Committee did recommend full funding on this, right, Stephanie? Okay. All right, so we're gonna move on. I think we're asked to take two together, both relating to the Village of Quogue, which is the number 13 and number 19. So 13 is the Quantuck Bay Flupsy and Oyster Relay Planting. And the number 19 is Stormwater Runoff and Bioswale. project, both sponsored by the Village of Quogue, and we have Mayor Truhold. Mr. Mayor, you want to introduce us?
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, and the council members, thank you for letting me present today. A FLUPSI is a floating upweller system. It's something that has been developed over time to help encourage the growth of spat baby oysters. Just a brief parenthesis, I became a spat member and at Tiana Bay, so I'm a big supporter of that project myself personally. We have at the Village Dock in Quogue supported the Moriches Bay project and have had a FLUPSI there since 2016. It grows anywhere from 100 to 200,000 oysters a year. Those spat have been seeded successfully in Moriches Bay for many years. I was kind of inspired by that to seek funding to install a second FLUPSI at our dock. These oysters would be dedicated to Quantuck Bay, which has been identified as one of the most polluted areas in the town of Southampton's waterways, because it's right in the middle of the two cuts. It gets the least flushing. So anything we can do to help improve water quality, and as I'm sure you've heard in other presentations, an adult oyster can flush up to 50 gallons of water a day, each oyster. So if you seed 100,000 oysters, that's 5 million gallons of water that are being flushed every day, which it helps take nitrates out, helps improve oxygen, it helps our waters. So the goal here is, it's not commercial fishery, it's to place oysters in Quantuck Bay, which is sorely in need of cleansing, and to do so, it's non-certified waters, meaning that those oysters are not collected, there's no fishing permitted in that area, so it has no impact or negative impact on the commercial fisheries, which we're very supportive of, but we do think it would have a meaningful effect on the water quality in Quantuck Bay over time. Obviously, each little step helps. I would like to make one correction and point out that the amount of requested funding is actually more than that 102,000. That's the first year of funding to build the FLUPSI, install it, and maintain it for a year. The grant request was for 5 years of funding and of an additional $45,000 per year because this is a 5-year project. So if you look at the actual application on page 8 of 9, the total, 5-year total was $285,595. That's what's in there. So sorry for that. I didn't see this until I received the agenda today.
But what you need this year,
The amount this year is indeed $102,659, yes. When we put the application together, it was recommended that we put in a 5-year project to show that this is not a one-off. The intent is to put this in place and to maintain it for at least 5 years and hopefully for many years to come, to continue to seed oysters on the beds each year.
So you needed an additional,
The
$225,000.
request, and I mean, it's within your discretion, but the request was
327?
was for an additional $182,936. It was $45,734 per year for 4 additional years. So the total amount of the grant application was $285,595.
285,595.
amortized over,
Over 5 years. With the first year was the larger amount to build, construct,
The
install, and then 1 year of maintenance, and then but there was the application, maybe we weren't supposed to do that, but we were told that we could project forward for the additional full 5-year life of the FLUPSI.
All right, any questions on that project? Or why don't we move on to the other project?
Okay. Thank you for combining the two, I appreciate it. The other project is not oyster-related. It's in the village of Quogue, like much of the town and villages in the town of Southampton, is waterfront. The village is approximately 5 square miles of surface area, but we have 17.7 miles of waterfront, approximately, depending upon how many inlets you include. Consequently, it's extremely important for us to look for ways to control stormwater runoff as a general matter and keep it from running off untreated directly into the Quogue Canal, Ogden Pond, Quantuck, Penniman's Creek. And so working with our consultants, we identified 5 key areas where water is running off, especially when we have heavy rains like we've been having and may well have in the coming days. The first project has been identified at the intersection of Neomog and Ogden Lane. I can go into as much detail as you want. There are, in our application, there are pictures of the areas we're talking about. But a bioswale without, I believe very strongly in environmental issues, but I don't have that background as a technical matter. But the concept is to create in certain key locations bioswales, which effectively are collection areas to get water collected before it runs straight off. You would put in appropriate drainage and local native plants, which would keep that water so that it would percolate downwards as opposed to straight in untreated into the water. And we believe that will significantly improve over time the water quality, because you're not going to get tar, oil, nitrogen runoff from fertilizer, et cetera, that's going to go straight into the water. So that's the concept. We've identified, as I said, 5 key areas. One is on Ogden Pond, one is by the wildlife refuge. The topography there has a lot of water running down a hill straight towards, I don't know how well you know the wildlife refuge, but there's the old ice pond there, which is at the headwaters of Quantuck Bay. A lot of water, when there's rain, runs down that hill, runs untreated into Quantuck Bay and or ice pond. We've had problems the last 2 summers in ice pond with algal blooms, which have been exacerbated by untreated stormwater runoff into those areas. So that's a key location. Penniman's Creek gets almost no flush. We've identified a location there to help runoff. I'll just stop there. I think you understand the concept. But,
So there's only, in the first year, it's just Ogden, Neomog Lane?
Well, we've set it up again as a 5-year plan to try to do 1 per year. If we get the funding up front, there's no reason why we can't do them all in a year. It's within the discretion of the CPF and how much money is available. We could do all 5, but and the more the merrier, the better. The sooner we do it, the sooner the water quality will be improved.
So this total here is over 5 years?
This total, unlike
the
other one,
okay.
this total is for the 5 projects.
All right.
Which can be done as quickly as we get the funds.
And who is your environmental lead?
This is First Coastal with Aram Tutrunian.
Okay, thank you.
So there's, of the 5 bioswale projects, is one more important than another, or they're all sort of equal importance?
I'd say they're all of equal importance. We highlighted in the application, because we had done the most work at the stage of the application back in March, the one at Neomog. Frankly, personally, I think the higher priority is the one by the wildlife refuge that I just highlighted. They're all fairly straightforward. This is not high-tech, complicated stuff. But it does require work. It requires road work it requires preparation, so requires drainage. So it's not high tech, but there is a fair amount of work involved.
But you have conceptual plans for all 5 of them?
Yes, we do. Yeah, we have conceptual plans. We don't have detailed engineering.
Well, understood.
Yeah.
That's part of where the money's going.
So-
Exactly.
So the one for the Quogue Wildlife Refuge, is that where the new culvert just went in?
It's near there. It would divert water before the culvert, so
Okay.
it would keep the water from getting to where that culvert is. But you know the areas.
Yeah.
So did you break, the
It's-
request is 885,750.
Which is
over
5 times
5.
177,000.
Right.
Can you get us a cost for the one that's a priority by the Quogue Wildlife Refuge?
I could do so. I don't have it available
Okay,
right
yeah,
now.
and if
Sure.
you could get that for us, okay.
You're estimating that they're all about the
Well,
same price?
because the plan was to do the same type of, like, once we design one, we would then, you know, hopefully save some money on engineering. We would be able to use the same concept, adapted to the topography of the specifics in each location. The costing was done on the basis of contacting, you know, some contractors and environmentals to come up with reasonable costs that we thought. Obviously, for this size of a project, we'd have to put it out to public bid, and so we haven't done so because we haven't finalized the engineering.
Well, I'm sort of asking because the advisory committee didn't recommend the full amount. They recommended the first year.
Okay.
And that's something we have to figure out as a board.
Well, I mean, look, we would be grateful to get anything, and if we can do one and prove test of concept, we'll come back next year and ask for more, and maybe then we would come back and ask for full funding to do 4 at once as opposed to 1 per year. You know, I don't know what's possible, and I'd be happy to speak with the advisory committee to come up with a plan that's acceptable.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea, and, you know, also, you understand the funding is never fixed. It's always flowing, and we're not sure, so we have to encumber that ahead of it.
Mhm.
But if there's a project that is dependent on the next year's project, Project 1 is dependent on Project 2, that becomes a little more difficult and more in your planning to consider. If you don't get full funding, do you have other sources of funding to continue that project should the CPF not have that for you? It's just, and I'd work that out with the.
Okay, well, I'd be happy to, I'd welcome the opportunity to speak with you. I didn't know, I mean, this is the first time I've made a grant application for CPF funds, so I'm.
But at the
Okay.
same time, like
It's not the last, though.
So you were probably under the assumption that you need to do a 5-year plan. I mean, you could have put all 5 of them in as a 1-year plan, because
Well, I guess I was not informed or advised correctly. I was hoping to demonstrate that the QUAG it's not a one-off, oh, let's do something this year. It's an ongoing commitment to look for opportunities to improve the water quality in our village and the whole town. So it's not that we're going to do this and say, okay, we've done our good deed, now we can go back to polluting. You know, the idea is to have an ongoing effort to continue to look for opportunities to do this. And if we were to get the funding, I would be able to do all 5, frankly, this year. We'll do what we can do with what we get, and we will
Well, I'm
continue.
not going to speak for the board, but from my point of view, it's really good to have data. And when you mentioned pilot, I think that's important to see the effectivity of something first, to be able to go back at the next year and say, we've had this kind of success. I think that helps a lot. So, you know, I mean, we're all acquainted with bioswales and their effectivity, but, you know, having data is a good thing. So I'm glad you're hooked up with Aram on that. 'Cause
Yeah, no, I mean-
they'll do the water testing and get that.
Well, absolutely. Quantuck Bay has an ongoing testing area already. We're working with DEC and talking about doing the same in Ogden. I mean, it's something that, but of course, as you know, with experience with bioswales, it's not like you have an instant success, you know, within the first month. I mean, these
Right.
things take time, but.
Well, but also, you know, you have some data sources too, like when the governor did the study, when we were looking at Bay Seawater Exchange, they actually quantified a lot of Quantuck Bay, and particularly its relationship with Moneybog Bay.
Mhm.
And, you know, that problem that you described earlier on, so it's always good to have that, you know,
Absolutely.
that supporting data behind your presentation to the board.
Absolutely.
All right. All right,
All right,
thank you.
any other questions? All right, anyone else on either of those Quag Village projects? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll move on to the one numbered, I guess, 14. It's the shellfish production and restoration improvement at the Conscience Point Shellfish Hatchery in Southampton. Is there somebody here to
Looks like
speak
Mr. Math.
on behalf? Oh, yeah, I see. Mark is here.
Mark Matthews, Conscious Point Shellfish. Glad to be here. Thank you for having me. We've had the Conscious Point Shellfish Hatchery there at Conscious Point. We're in our 11th year now. Started very small, built a little building, built a hatchery. We've raised millions of oysters. We donate oysters every year to the trustees for their use in reseeding. We sell oysters and we sell seed to small oyster farmers. And the whole goal is to keep the oysters coming. And every oyster is a good one. We've limped along running hoses from the marina to get fresh water, or from Howard Reisman's house across the parking lot. And we use the plumbing facilities at the marina when it's open, otherwise, same thing. And I think it's time for us to get water, to get septic, build little buildings that we need for that. We spend a lot of money buying ice because everything's got to be iced instantly. We want to have an ice machine, and having the water supply will allow us to do that. Having a cold room will also save on the ice supply. So this is just natural evolution of our little organization. We've got the full support and blessing with our landlord, the Southampton Historical Museum. We have a new lease with them, and we're eager to take this next step. And your helping fund this will be a big step to us, big help to us. We as a group are contributing a fair amount of time, professional time and labor into getting this built, which is how we got the first part of things built. And be glad to answer any questions.
So the advisory committee bifurcated your request into those things related directly to water quality and those not related directly to water quality. So the funding for the cooler, the shed, and the ice maker were deemed by the committee to not be directly related to water quality. But the supply and installation of the water would be,
And the septic.
water connection.
And the septic.
And the septic, yeah. So the recommendation, the requested amount was $151,665, and they recommended $68,250.
That's, number one, disappointing and surprising. It's surprising that they would choose to not help us build these little buildings to put the ice machine and the additional storage, and it just seems very short-sighted that we've got a water supply and we've got a septic system and no buildings to connect to it. It just makes no sense.
Well, I mean, there might be a question as to whether it's an allowable expense. I don't know. I mean, I could ask Ms. Davis to respond. Stephanie, do you want to say why the committee felt that the water quality money should not be used in that regard? And thank you for being here. Thank you for volunteering for this committee and for your
you're most
technical
welcome.
expertise.
Stephanie Davis, chairperson of the Water Quality Committee. We really appreciate your application. We really appreciate the work that you do there. In reviewing everybody's application, we look to see those things that are directly related to water quality improvement. And in the case of this particular application, we felt that the walk-in cooler, the 1,000-pound ice maker, and the associated contingency were things that were not directly related to water quality improvement. They are part of the shellfish operation, which some of the shellfish you do sell, some of it is commercial, some of it is donated, and so that was where we kind of decided which things we would recommend as definitely fundable through CPF, and things that we did not recommend as funded through CPF.
Thank you for clarification. I still find it incredible that you came to that conclusion, because we really have very little use for the septic system and water unless we can connect it to a building that we don't have yet. And this application didn't come out of nowhere. It was all reviewed with the director of the CPF fund, and so we walked through the whole process, and we thought that this was a good application, and we'd like you to reconsider.
Yeah, these are just
Fleshing it
advisory
out, yeah.
opinions, so.
It's a hearing.
I understand.
Yeah,
So we
I
asked-
am, though, yes, they are advisory opinions, we can ignore them, but the fundamental question of whether it's an appropriate or allowable use of this taxpayer-generated fund is more of a legal question. If it's not fundable, then it's not up to us, right? Then we can't do it. Now, I don't know, Ms. Fenlon, is this something that you've examined at all, or?
Yeah.
Did you want to speak to this? Or Dan, if it's a legal question?
Well, you know, we always review all these applications, and we want to see what's going to have the strongest impact on water. You know, there was some concern that there's some shellfish being sold, and that the ice is predominantly for those oysters or, you know, shellfish that are being held and then, you know, sold. But, you know, this is his opportunity to, you know, speak to the board and say how these are very integral parts of the operation. So, you know, we don't know the exact operation, and, you know, he has a facility, he's looking to expand it. There's definite water quality benefits here, so,
Well,
and at the end, it is
I
at your
think the
discretion.
question was, in the statute itself, what we're allowed to spend with water quality
Yeah.
funds alone. Well, that's the 20% that we guard carefully.
Yeah, well, and so part of that, I think the Water Quality Advisory Board, and I don't want to speak for them, but, you know, a shed and an office, you know, is that needed for the water quality impact, right? You know, so they're trying to look at this and, you know, see what's directly related to.
Okay.
Is there
I
a
mean-
way to apportion it, to say, look, 50% of this shed is related to water quality and 50% is toward the commercial operation, therefore we could fund half of it,
Yeah.
something like that?
And I think, you know, I told, you know, in our discussions, it'd be nice for us to see the breakdown of, you know, how many oysters, you know, and I think you provided some of that detail. But, you know, it would be good for us to, you know, understand how much is commercially sold to support the not-for-profit, how much is then sold to local fishermen, how much is sold just for, you know, water quality purposes and donated to the trustees.
Yeah, and Mark, and don't misunderstand me, I have a lot of respect for Conscious Point and everything you do, but I also want to be careful not to set a precedent going on into the future that we're, you know, that it's a mission creep. So if we can get something like that very firmly described, then it will help prevent that kind of precedent going forward. That's my concern.
Hey, Dan, could
And
you-
Dan, yeah.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Dan
From a legal,
McCormick is our CPF attorney.
yes, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. From a legal perspective, in a nutshell, the question from a legal perspective is, are these additional features necessary components with respect to water quality contribution? So if that argument can be made by the applicant, that at least can be considered by the committee and the CPF department. Absent that, if there's no nexus, then it's hard to say that these will contribute to water quality such that they should be funded.
The only thing I might change is rather than in a nutshell, go with the clamshell. So
Well taken, Mr. Supervisor.
Okay, I get.
You can choose from any number of shells.
Yeah, you know, they're all good. I get the point, and I would love to have board members come out and see what we do, why we do it, what we need, and how this is going to really make us do a better job of what we're doing. And the answer should be obvious, that, you know, running down to North Sea Harbor buying ice does not make sense from just staying alive. Point, because we spend money on that, and we're a shoestring operation.
I think we all understand that this is vital to your operation. I think it's just a legal question of whether it's fundable through this source.
we need the ice.
We need you to help us
Yeah.
make the case for it.
Well,
And it's possible that it's, a percentage of it is fundable. If we can figure out what percentage relates of your operation is directly related to water quality. But we need help, I think, detailing.
Well,
If you're growing
our,
100,000 clams and 30% is going to the trustees and others for water quality, then we could say 30% of it is water quality. But we don't have those figures, so.
well,
And where that revenue that you do derive from that, I think you can make that case.
I
You just
think
need
so,
to
too.
make it
yeah.
in order to be able to satisfy, at least me, that
And I would make that case to you, or,
you make that to the water quality
quality people.
board and it comes back to us.
all right, we're glad to do that.
I have a question about the overall application.
Sure.
Two structures?
There's a little shed about 120 square feet now,
That's already there, and
and there's a
you
10
wanna-
by 20 hatchery with a 6 by 8 algae room attached to it. So there's two structures now. When it's done, there'd still be two structures. The smaller one would be larger.
Okay, so it's the ice machine, the FLUBC system, a water main, and septic.
Well, there's a FLUBZ already,
Okay,
and that's in the water. It comes out in the wintertime. There's the hatchery building where we raise the larvae. And then there's a shed, which is, it's an agricultural thing. There's stuff that you gotta put indoors. And we still need that, but we need a place.
and that currently exists.
That
Yeah,
shed
that's there.
exists, yes. And then we need a place, a dry place to have an office, because the paperwork goes on and on. As more people come in to have to plug in. and communicate
Administration.
as it goes. And then we need a toilet facilities.
And 151,000, you believe will cover that, all of that?
I believe it will, yes.
Okay.
So you're
That's it.
growing
That's my
spat,
question.
and you want to increase your spat quantity,
We
right?
do.
So that's, there, I see a link already, that if you need a bigger building to grow more spat, to do more of that, you're not growing algae, you're not doing things like, or maybe you are.
We are growing algae.
Yeah, so you need that, you just need to get that information on your application back to them to justify why there's the need for that expansion.
In
That's
fact,
all.
in the application now, it's very clearly written that we cannot have oyster breeding during the winter months because we don't have the water to do it. So we need that. And that's written, we could have 2 more spawns a year if we did that, and that would be more oysters. I mean, that's in the application.
Fresh potable water. You're-
So,
Yes.
Mark, I think what I'm
Seems
hearing
low,
you saying
but-
is that a partial funding here is like no funding, because it's like, we'll pay for the tires for the car, but not the engine. And so what good is the tires without the engine?
That's
right?
what I'm saying.
So, I think we're gonna have to figure out what the law is, and I hear the argument. It's, you need all these components, otherwise you're wasting the money on the first components, because they're connected to the building, with the ice. That's where the water's going, to make the ice. So, all right, I get, we're just gonna have to figure this out internally. All right?
Do I need to supply other information?
Perhaps.
Or maybe highlight parts of the application might help?
I don't personally have a problem with the full funding here, I just wanna make sure it's lawful.
Yes, me too.
So, let's,
I'm a taxpayer.
and I think that's sort of at the core of the committee's comments, is that parts of the request didn't conform or comport to the program.
On their face.
Yeah, so
we
we'll
might
sort
need
it
more
out.
time.
But yeah, any more information you can
Okay.
provide. All right, we do need to move on. No,
Okay.
anyone who wanted to comment on the Conscience Point?
Yes, I didn't come here to support this application, but I do want to say something.
Chris,
Yeah,
come on.
Stricker, yeah.
Well,
So I think one point that's maybe being missed here is that any oysters in the water are going to improve water quality. So the fact that they're being taken out, they don't know whether they're being sold or being given to the trustees. So it's just about more oysters in the water, more oysters coming out. So whether they go on ice or go back in the environment, it's better to go back in the environment we're talking about a certain size oyster, so just don't lose sight of the bigger picture. It's just about the numbers of oysters, and if they can increase their capacity to grow oysters, it's that much more filtration. So I think it all fits together. You need to have that administrative support to get the work done. You need water to run the hatchery, so it's all there. So I understand the legal question that you have, but in my mind, from the biological perspective, it makes sense. So just saying that.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
And your hair, I haven't seen you in a while, it's starting to look like mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Hi, Mr. Supervisor, members of the council. I'm Sarah Couts. I'm the new executive director at the Southampton History Museum. And you are probably familiar with me in my advocacy in general for historic preservation. And I've had a lot of experience with this kind of thing, but I just started a week ago. We want to help you get this approved, so I am going to work with our hatchery folks and make sure everything you have is available, and work with the CPF advisory board, and we're going to get this. Don't worry, we're going to make it happen. And our full support to the hatchery and the work they do.
So you're suggesting that there might be another source for some of the funding?
Well, let's see. Let's see what we could do, or make the case a little more clear about how these things need to be a little more clarified. Yeah, I think we can work on it and then come back with something a little more rigorous addressing these concerns. And I think it's pretty clear what we need, and work with the advisory board. And I think we could get this cleared up and sorted out.
And you clearly support the upgrade of the facility down there to, okay.
And we thank you so
Produce
much.
more oysters.
Is there a timeline involved?
Sure.
Sure, right now. We want to, guys, after the meeting. Just get together.
No,
I think that's really all.
there's some time. But this is a public hearing, but we hopefully be able to close it. And
3
if you're
weeks.
able to provide additional, Jim, how would that work? If they
2
provide additional information, I guess we can leave the record
2 weeks.
open.
Yeah,
Probably the
just
next
I would
board
keep open the written record and then encourage the communication between Mr. Matthews and yourself and with Jackie and Dan and see if
Okay.
they have-
Yeah, great, excellent. We'll be in touch.
Mayor
Thank you.
Trudeau, did you have a question?
No, that was my question procedurally, was this going to be closed? Because I would love to have the opportunity to.
Yeah, I'm afraid we're not getting you on the recording here, but I'm assuming we're going to leave the written record open for 2 weeks, so if you're able to get more information about your ability to do more than one bioswale.
Yeah, no, that was
That
exactly my
could be done in
question,
the
is
same 2
whether,
weeks, yeah.
if I would have the opportunity to have a follow-up with the advisory board, because I think there was a misunderstanding, and I think we could clearly do more than one project.
Okay.
There's time, and we don't do this every week, so.
So,
Okay.
yeah, you
But
should-
so there's going to be no final
There's
decision
sections.
until the next.
I think you're okay
At a
for,
minimum.
we'll
Great,
you probably have 2 weeks to sort it out.
Perfect, thank you very much.
All right, so we're gonna move on to engineering design services for the Watermill Fish Passage at Old Mill Road. And this is a trustee application. James, is there more than one trustee application, or just the only one?
Just this is the only one today.
Okay, so James Durier is joined by trustee Welker and Welker. And James, you want to proceed?
Good afternoon, Supervisor, members of the board. Thanks for having me today. As you all know, Mill Pond is recognized by New York State DEC as listed impaired water body subject to harmful algal blooms. It's been on the list since 2013 till present. Trustees have been working diligently to getting funding for stuff that they can do within the water body to battle the cyanobacteria blooms. This fish passage that they're proposing is the phase 1 of the project. It's just the engineering design for the permanent fish passage under Old Mill Road in Watermill. The fish passage will allow for migration of diametrous fish, river herring, and American eel from Mill Creek to Mill Pond in order to restore critical spawning and maturation habitat for such species to achieve water quality improvements in Mill Pond. The project addresses restoration and reduction as it will restore access to approximately 100 acres of diaphanous fish habitat in Mill Pond, support watershed biodiversity, and restore aquatic connectivity in the freshwater and tidal stream corridor for long-term ecological outcomes such as enhancement of the water quality and nutrient cycling within the ecosystem. Here to answer any questions. I think
Where are these fish that are passing into Mill Pond through Mill Creek? So they're starting out in Mecox Bay?
Yes.
And
Is there a confirmed run there?
But these are saltwater fish, that's salt and fresh water, right? That's the
Yes,
term
they
that-
come in.
So they're starting in the Atlantic Ocean?
Yes.
And I guess when the cut is open, they get into Mecox?
Yes.
And then they want to go further upstream?
Yes, they need to find the fresh water.
like salmon.
Yeah.
It's like salmon.
And so they get
Correct.
into Mill Creek, but they can't get into Mill Pond. If they were to get to Mill Pond, though, they'd encounter all the carp that are there.
Well, that's a good reason for, since we are removing the carp to battle that issue. If the alewives are in there, then they will be competing for the same resources and can outcompete the carp as well. So it would help eliminate the carp.
When you want to sort of reduce the carp population first, so that when they got there, they weren't outcompeted for food sources?
Correct, and we're funding for the carp removal, and we're working on that as well.
Did you do the fish study there?
Yes.
You did?
Yes, there was a fish study done this past
I haven't seen the
June.
results of that fish study.
We did a presentation.
Sorry.
Good afternoon, Ann Welker, Southampton
I-
Town Trustee.
And
We-
thank you. I remember we had done an attempt to remove carp twice, but the second time they didn't really find any carp.
So
And
we
so
had-
then we did this study to see if there really were any carp, and you have the results.
Right.
Drum roll, please.
So, we have done several carp removals over the course of the past several years. The most recent one was in June of this past year, at which time an electrofishing study was done, which is a survey of the amount of carp found in the pond. There has been there was a report done to the trustees at our last meeting, actually, which I'm happy to share with you, that the company that did the removal is advising additional removal of carp. And to just cycle back to our current project, what we're looking at is a nature-based solution by encouraging what's called a remnant run, so opening up this fish passage of these fish that are born in freshwater, move to saltwater to live, but then come back to breed, and then are in a nursery situation in the freshwater, and that's the cycle of their lives. The town of Southampton and Southampton Town trustees have been leaders in this by banning harvesting in Alewife Creek. So Alewife Creek is the largest in the Peconic Bay system. Alewife Creek is the largest alewife passage of these river herring on Long Island. And this project, if we were to be able to install this fish passage, would be the first of its kind, opening up a remnant run on the South Shore in the town of Southampton. So we are looking for funding to see if the design of the project would be either through a culvert under the road or perhaps around. I'm incorporating comments from both Ed Werner, fellow town trustee, who is a fifth-generation Bayman, and also Byron Young, retired New York State fisheries biologist, both who are in complete support of this project. We feel that the design and the engineering study is an important part of this entire Mill Pond ecosystem. Mill Pond experiences harmful algal blooms nearly to the degree that Lake Agawam does, but does not get the press that it does. The road, the drainage work that was done on Deerfield Road by the town with the highway department has made a notable difference in the toxicity of the algal blooms. But we are, through carp removal, through potential fish passage, through floating wetlands, still working on the water quality in Mill Pond. So this is part of the entire picture, because these fish, were they to come and spawn, would help to manage the carp population. You're looking puzzled.
Well, all right, so we spent thousands of dollars removing carp from Mill Pond based on the premise that the carp stir up bottom sediments, which then suspend phosphorus in the water column, and that phosphorus then is available as a nutrient to the algae that's in there. And if we remove the carp, then we're going to help keep that phosphorus down. Do these other fish that we're talking about not stir up the same sediments?
That's right. Carp bioturbate, which means when they feed, they stir up sediment. And don't get confused here. This is speaking specifically to river herring. So nothing along the lines of the carp. You're right, that's still part of the big picture, but this is just river herring. River herring would improve the water quality.
So they don't stir up the bottom sediments.
But they don't stir up the bottom.
And what about creating this fish ladder? It's
It's
a two-way passage, so are we also going to end up with the carp getting into Mecox?
I don't know the answer to that. That's
Salt
why
water.
we need a design and engineering study. So that's a good point, but I don't think that that's something that you need to look at here. These fish passages are very specific. I think you've been to the one that's at the Woodhull Dam.
Yes.
that you've seen. They're very specific, designed for access for American eels as well as river herring. The size, just the whole structure is very specific. So we can certainly address the carp issue as far as getting into Mecox. We do not want that at all.
The carp can already get in there, because
Yeah.
there's a culvert. It's just
Water's
the
running.
fact that the fish can't go
Yeah.
upstream right now because of the culvert, if the bay is low, or depending on where the bay
But
is.
the carp are freshwater, so they're gonna have problems
But if-
in Mecox anyway, so. That's what you were gonna
Yeah,
say, right?
that's what I'm trying to get in.
Okay.
How remnant was the run, the original run?
So the Watermill Museum dates back to the 18th century. So its Old Mill Road is in fact a dam. So it's remnants to the tune
When
of
that was
300
put in.
years. Yeah.
So
it's
the
pretty good
process would
remnant.
be that you'd have to bring hatchlings up to the source point for them to then go downstream. I mean, I'm just interested in how you reestablish a saltwater, freshwater fish like that, and where you start that cycle.
So historically, the cuts were opened, Georgica, Sag, Mecox were opened each fall, each spring in order, so that migrating fish would enter each water body. So there are now some alewives that have gotten into Mecox when we open in the spring and then move out when we open in the fall. They make their way up from the saltier water that's closer to the cut into the brackish water in the mid-bay, but then up to the headwaters. So there have been, Dr. Young noted that there have been incidences where he has seen alewives at the base of the dam at Old Mill Pond.
That's interesting, because I know for salmon, they go back to their original point of origin, no matter what, so or they attempt to, right? And I'm just wondering why alewives, they would hopefully see this, or something instinctively would bring them back to that point, but not necessarily.
I'm not sure if alewives do return to where they were born. I think they do, but can you speak to that?
I don't either, I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
they do. But if they're already in Mecox or coming into Mecox, they will,
So they find it
Yeah.
and then establish that
Yes.
instinct for return.
to my knowledge.
It's innate.
Okay, thanks.
James, I see in this, the diagram here, it's not only the dam over Mill Road. I'm sorry, I'm getting the name of the road wrong. But there's also the train track And does that culvert, do you anticipate that that culvert would need to be worked on? The Long Island
That's not-
Railroad?
We're not proposing over there, but
It may very well be
Put down
okay.
at the bottom.
It could be an additional project
Okay.
for that section.
So, but just to address that point, the culvert that runs underneath the railroad tracks, there's no change in elevation.
good.
Whereas going from Mill Creek, the brackish water body, under the dam, there's an increase in elevation up to Mill Pond.
Very good.
So there's no attempt to go into the culvert that was, or the expulsion area that we originally put in down the road from stormwater runoff, which was the big problem. You said that's helped a lot, but there would be no attempt to use that at all for breeding.
Not sure I'm following
And
that.
on Deerfield?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
No.
Yeah, because that's farther up, that doesn't
Right, I'm
connect to
just
Mill
curious.
Creek, yeah, no.
Yeah, I mean, when we built it, if we'd had hindsight at that time, we could have, so I'm wrong, which makes it
This
okay.
is by the,
By the
old-
water mill.
Yeah, no, but I was thinking,
So-
you know, when we do these things, it's something to be
Yeah.
always keeping in the back of our minds, you know, instead of just sort of doing it the way we always did it with this kind of information in mind. That's all I'm really getting.
Absolutely.
Great project.
Thank you so
All right,
much.
thank you.
for-
And the committee did recommend full funding for this.
And your interest, and we thank the committee as
All
well.
right, thank you.
Thank you.
And
Anyone from our town hall audience who wanted to be heard on this? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next one. Shoreline softening and habitat enhancement. This is a CCE, Cornell Cooperative Extension request.
Hello, my name is Molly Graffam from Cornell Cooperative Extension. Thank you, board members. I'm here to talk about our project. In 2020, a bulkhead permeable reactive barrier was installed with funds from the Community Preservation Fund at the Hampton Hills Association and is currently preventing groundwater nitrogen from entering Shinnecock Bay. And this was a very successful project. We actually have a team out there today sampling the system. And this proposal that is up for review and hopefully funding is meant to build on the success of that project. It's at the same site, but we'd like to use a new approach and establish a living shoreline, which is also a green infrastructure, on the seaward side of the bulkhead. The idea here is to mimic an existing living shoreline that naturally established just south of the bulkhead permeable reactive barrier, and it's now flourishing. So since 2020 to now, it naturally established, and so we'd like to mimic that, but just north of the PRB to help remove nitrogen in this area, which we know is a high nitrogen loading zone. So we're proposing about 1,600 square feet area and planting about 1,000 Spartina plants. We would bring in core logs and coir logs, which is a coconut fiber, and clean sand and gravel to raise the elevation so that the elevation is about the same as the living shoreline that's flourishing nearby. And so this would provide water quality benefits by promoting denitrification and helping with the natural recruitment of shellfish. So we have already received a support letter from the town trustees who have jurisdiction over the Bay Bottom, and we'll be working with, hopefully, with local companies to get this project installed with your support, hopefully. And we intend to provide a report on the water quality benefits and the establishment, and just keep you informed of how the project's going.
Questions?
I have a question about the what'd you call them, the coconut husk? I've seen them. When they biodegrade, do they, is there a wetland that's established, a eutrophication process that is established as they decay?
So
Will it be permanent?
it's, the coir logs are biodegradable, so we anticipate them lasting about 2 years, and that should be enough time for helping establish the Spartina in the area. So we want them to degrade slowly so that it provides protection for the Spartina.
So the Spartina alternative floor will hold organic debris in place. We have bog formation, and that's
Exactly. That will
the
promote
plan.
denitrification.
Is this something that you would constantly or need to augment over years?
The idea is that the living shoreline naturally promotes sedimentation. So once it's established, there should really be minimal maintenance. The first year, we've budgeted for maintenance and promoting that establishment.
Thank you.
A question sort of along those lines. I know coconut husks are like a great source of carbon for carbon filtration, but I also know that they're expensive. Just curious as to why coconut husks.
It's just a typical material that's been used previously to promote living shorelines. So they're commercially available coir logs, they're called. So it's they come in like a log
They're
shape.
rolled,
Yeah, they're already pre-rolled for this type of purpose. We felt that it was a pretty cost-effective approach.
Interesting. All right, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Stephanie, can I ask you a question? If you could just step, to the side, appreciate that. Stephanie, this is one that the committee did not recommend any funding for.
Correct.
Could you shed some more light on that?
Absolutely. We're concerned, we looked at the area that's where this project is planned. It's fully bulkheaded for that entire length, and it looked like the area where this particular installation was planned appeared to be a fairly active erosional area. There does not appear to be any sediment that is accumulating there. The area that has become naturally established further to the south is an area where it didn't appear that there is a bulkhead present. It looks like there's several groins directly upstream of that, and it is naturally accumulating sand and growing vegetation. We were concerned that attempting to establish a living shoreline in this area was not necessarily going to be successful for the required 5-year life of the project, because it does appear to be an active erosional area. It's also a very small area. It doesn't appear to be a substantial area for which to try to establish this and really make a case for this kind of water quality improvement. So it's really the 5 years and the obvious erosional action that appears to be occurring in this area that were problems for us.
All right, thank you, Stephanie. Any other
Thank you.
questions for Stephanie? Okay, is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this particular project?
Yeah, me.
Okay, Mr. D'Angelo.
I support this project primarily because it's by my house. And I'm reviewing all the projects here, and it really jumps out at me that it's disproportionate to the villages. I mean, IKEA Village of Quogue, $885,000, Village of Southampton, $435,000. You know, I'm all about equity. $194,000, Village of Southampton, that's where you live, Mr. Scheinerman. Village of Southampton, $235,000.
Mr. D'Angelo, are you talking about this particular project?
I'm talking about fairness.
Well, that's fine, but right now.
This project is, I'll finish, I don't interrupt you, so I would like to finish what I'm going to say.
You're interrupting this process, but.
Well, no, you want to control what I'm going to say?
I'd like to know, sir, if you have a comment about this particular project.
Yes, I do, and I'm going to get to it in due time,
Please do.
when I want to.
Please back
Okay.
off the mic.
So it's pretty obvious that the equity here is not here. This is, again, the village people. Most of these projects are in the villages. And this project happens to be by me in Hampton Bays, the only one, for $455,000, which has been destroyed because the trustees have allowed all this bulkheading. And we have no more eelgrass, we have no more habitat at all, we have no more ducks. This is sorely needed. And I strongly support this, and it's only $45,000, and I think in the interest of equity and fairness, it should be improved. Does that suffice, Mr. Bouvier?
That's fine, thank you for your
Okay.
comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Or is there anyone else who wishes to be heard on this application? This grant request? All right. So- Yeah, sure.
So I do believe it's a similar scale to the living shoreline that naturally established. The proposed project is a similar scale. So any living shoreline that does establish in the area, and we'd like to promote the establishment of this new living shoreline, it's going to provide water quality benefits. A tangential effect is that it provides sedimentation and it can expand naturally over time. So it could help reduce erosion. We just have to give it the chance to become established and promote it. So that's what this budget for the year would help do.
Is there a supporting study for that, for what you're proposing? Or you're seeking money for that, or you're going directly to, what you're requesting is money to actually put the
We're
system in?
requesting money to put the system in and to quantify the water quality benefits, assuming that we can maintain it and that it establishes. Based on the fact that the naturally existing one was established just 200 feet south of that area, with a little bit of care and time and maintenance, we think we can get it to work.
Okay, thank you.
One other question I'm interested in. The bulkhead, the plan for the bulkhead is that the bulkhead would stay and
Yes, the bulkhead would stay.
theoretically new natural shoreline would be created out in front of it.
Correct. So we
And
had,
freight.
in that previous project, we replaced the existing bulkhead with new PVC bulkhead, and a PRB was installed behind it. But there's currently bulkhead, old wooden bulkhead that continues to exist there. So this project would be installed right in front of that, so the bulkhead would remain the same.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And we're gonna move on to the next one. All right, reducing groundwater nitrogen input into Sagaponic Lake, Phase 3. This is the Peconic Land Trust. This is somebody here from PLT. Anyone presenting on behalf of PLT? This is a request for $531,011 for the design and installation of a PRB upgradient of the strip of wetland along 334 Bridge Lane, Sagaponic. Do you have some information on this?
Yes.
Okay.
Molly Graff from Cornell Cooperative Extension. I believe Matt Swain, the Vice President for the Peconic Land Trust, is on the Zoom call, so he could come up
okay.
and answer questions as well, but I do have
Appreciate
a few statements that I'd like to make. So this work began in 2021, where we received private funding from money that the Peconic Land Trust raised, and we continued that work into Phase 2, where we received CPF funds from the town of Southampton for site characterization for permeable reactive barriers. And in 2022, we characterized 3 sites, a residential, an agricultural site, and the Smith Corner Preserve. We found that 2 sites, the residential and the agricultural site, were very suitable for treatment with permeable reactive barriers. So our proposal requests funding for a PRB at the agricultural site at along Bridge Lane, and it would be approximately 200 feet long. We'd be installing this system next year, hopefully with the funding, and we anticipate 200 to 500 pounds of nitrogen per year could be removed with this type of system. We actually found, after a thorough investigation of all of Sag Pond, that this site had the highest groundwater nitrogen, up to 16 milligrams nitrogen per liter. And just to give you a little bit perspective, typically like uncontaminated groundwater would have more like 1 to 2 milligrams per liter of nitrogen. So this is a very elevated nitrogen concentration. And yeah, we've been able to, so far, with the help of the CPF committee and with private funders, we've just been able to help leverage public money with the privately raised funds, and we'd like support to continue this project. It also includes site characterization for another high priority area at Sag Pond. And in general, Sag Pond is a really high priority area that was identified in the sub-watershed plan and in the water quality improvement plan. So we think that Sag Pond it's at a critical point where we'd like to help remediate the groundwater nitrogen at these specific locations to help improve water quality and maybe even reverse water quality impairments. And if Matt has anything to say, I'll.
All right, so let's bring Matt on. Charles, do you see the individual from Peconic Land Trust?
He's on.
Okay, let's bring him in. Hey, Matt, let's just see if we can hear you first, which I don't think we can. Can you try saying something?
No.
Muted.
All right, you may be muted. Make sure you're unmuted.
His volume needs to go up.
All right, is that better?
Oh, yeah,
there you go.
that's much better, yeah.
Got it.
Oh, okay, yeah. So this is just a continuation of our work on Sag Pond, and we're just, looking more to do this mitigation measure. But the community around Sag Pond has really been supporting this financially, so we've been able to raise a lot of funds, which Molly and Ron have used to do some initial study work, and then we've also used CPF. Molly mentioned this. And then just, a few other things. We've, given some grant funding to the Center for Clean Water Technology to hire a person on to help assist with landowners around Sag Pond to upgrade their septic systems. And we're also in a partnership with, funding a position with Perfect Earth to help educate the public on runoff and landscape practices around the pond. So we're actively fundraising 365 days a year privately to assist with the coordination of Sag Pond. And this is just another thing we're hoping to achieve with CPF funding. And Molly knows all the details, but the pond's really important to us, and we're just out there trying to fundraise and leverage public funding. So I'm just really excited about the project. That's all I want to say.
All right, thank you, Matt.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for Polly or Matt? All right, hearing none. Is there anyone else who wants to speak on this particular project relating to Sag Pond? And this was recommended for full funding by the committee. Okay, let's move on to the next one. This is Cedar Avenue and Bayview Drive North Stormwater Improvement. This is a request by the North Haven Manor Association. And if you'll introduce yourself, we'll let you introduce this topic.
Yeah, I will. Hi, everybody. I'm Susan Reed. I'm here today as president of the North Haven Manor Association in North Haven. After listening to all these other ones, I feel like the minnow in the pool here. But at any rate, I want to thank the town of Southampton for its foresight in authorizing the use of portion of the CPF money for water quality improvement. So North Haven Manor, we're a homeowners association of 89 houses. We are the oldest association in North Haven, and we are the second largest behind North Haven Point. We've applied for a $53,000 grant for non-point source abatement and control to alleviate runoff into Sag Harbor Bay. As you can see from our application, the project proposes a stormwater runoff improvement system, including a bioretention facility, a new storm drain, and leaching pools at the corner of Cedar Avenue and Bayview, which is the bottom corner of North Haven Manor, right next to Sag Harbor Bay. So I thought a little historic background to this would be helpful. So we were the original development in North Haven. The land was sold in the early 1900s to a developer from the original owner, and around the 30s or 40s, the land was surveyed, mapped, and building lots were advertised for sale. The developer advertised that they intended to sell small ranch-style houses to families of modest means in a comprehensive manner. The half-mile shorefront of our community was divided into 10 lots on the water and 80 lots in the interior. Plans for the development called for it to be designed in an artistic way, with no asphalt roads, no cement sidewalks, no monotonous rectangles, and instead broad drives with sweeping curves, graveled walks, and shady, stately trees. Needless to say, the words drainage systems were not included in the plans for these communities at all. And the bottom line is really that we are one of many, many communities whose drainage do not have drainage systems. We're at water level, and we are not equipped to meet the major new reality of the moment, which is the new level of storms that we're seeing. So in October 22, Hurricane Ian came up the east side of the East Atlantic seaboard, and we just got the edge of Ian, but where we are, we experienced this unbelievable torrential flooding, ponding, and intense runoff into the bay that we had never seen before. So we're so alarmed by what we saw that we commissioned the Rayner Group, and Vinnie Gaudiello is here on behalf of our application, to do a study of this area. And they found that apparently 6 acres up on the hill basically feeds enormous amounts of water down 3 roads into this corner right adjacent to Sag Harbor Bay. Since Hurricane Ian, we've seen at least 6 storms of the intensities we've never seen before. These were storms that I guess they used to call once-in-a-100-year storms, and now we sort of are joking that it's once-in-a-100-day storms. So these storms right now are overwhelming our roads, septic systems, pouring all this non-point effluent into the low point of our community and into the bay. We submitted this application in March, and I just wanted to make an update to it, which we found out after this, that I guess it's called the Peconic Blue Carbon Project, has selected this section of shoreline for a pilot project with Dr. Gobler of Stony Brook and the Peconic Estuary Partnerships. They are planning, to do pilot project on this very shoreline, to plant kelp gardens and oyster reefs and eelgrass, and to study the effects of all this on the shoreline. I don't think that they know what's coming down the hill at them at this very moment. So it seems an additional reason that it would be a very good thing to have, an alleviation of this runoff here. We are still a small, modest community by the current standards of the East End. Our North Haven Manor Association budget is about $80,000 a year, with which we take care of road regrading, repair, landscape, snow removal. The project we're applying for almost is the amount of our annual budget. We would not be able to afford this otherwise. Our community is really committed to helping alleviate the runoff into Sag Harbor Bay as a typical community without much drainage help. And we're going to contribute $10,500 to the cost of this project. So in comparison to the other requests, it's a small grant, but we feel that it's critical to the health of the bay and to these projects that are going forward, and we would really appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the board?
No, but I have a
And
comment.
Vin Badiello's here too.
All right.
Well, first of all, thank you and the association for doing this. I know homeowners association, you don't necessarily have to. You could probably live your lives and let this condition
Right.
go on, and it would just be
Yeah.
there. I know this area that you're talking about, and I remember the ruts, and I believe it runs through a private piece of property
Yeah.
right next to the Esplanade, or
Yeah.
2 parcels away from the
Yeah.
Esplanade there. Right off the shore there, off of North Haven Manor and Kelly's Point,
Yeah.
that was a historic oyster reef from when I was a kid.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's no longer. So I'm real happy that the Peconic Estuary Program is undertaking the Peconic Blue Carbon Project, and, you know, I appreciate you all for doing this. Runoff is important, and it goes right into the bay, right into Shelter Island Sound there.
Yeah.
So, thanks.
Thank you very much. And
Two questions I
yeah.
have for you. One is, that these are, none of these are county roads, these are all either village or town roads, correct? I just want to clarify that. And also,
Private.
have you?
Private roads.
They're private.
I mean, private roads.
Yeah, we take care of them
Have you
ourselves.
contacted any other, are you working with any other group as far, just besides Rayner on this from the environmental side, just the Rayner group, correct?
Just Rayner right now, but we're actually gonna, this year, undertake a comprehensive kind of analysis of our roads, because, you know, we occupy quite a bit of property in North Haven, and we feel like it's our responsibility to do what we can, because we're a private
Sure,
community
no,
and we don't get even village help.
Yeah,
So-
well, that was my
Yeah.
last question, was you have bioretention, that will require removal at some point. Some of those materials, it's not all, sometimes it sludges and it's gotta be removed.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's a cost to that, to your association.
I think we'll
over
build
time.
that into our budget in the
Okay.
future.
All right, great, thank you.
Great.
I support it, I think
Thank you.
it's good to do, and I'm glad you guys are doing it.
Thank you very much.
All right, any other questions? All right, perfect. All right, anybody from the town hall audience who wanted to comment on that North Haven project? Okay, we will then move on. Let's do the 3 Southampton Village ones
North Haven Manor.
next, right? So we've got number
20,
20, which
and
is
21.
Old Town Bioswale. And then we've got Village Pond Bioswale. And then we have Wickapog Pond Watershed Bioswales. And Rusty Smith is
Yep.
here from Nelson Pope and Voorhees. Are you prepared to talk about all 3 of those?
Yep.
Perfect, take it away.
Yep, so, for the record, I'm Rusty Schmidt, I'm with Nelson Pope and Voorhees. We did a study, this is a number of years ago. Thank you to the board and for all the past help that we've received. And we did look at the overall village as a comprehensive stormwater management. And from that, we have these 3 projects. So you've seen us come back from Lake Agawam. We're away from Lake Agawam. So all the projects here are part of the other 3 ponds that are associated with the bay. The first one is Old Town Pond. We're looking at putting in 12 rain gardens and bioswales along Old Town Pond and Wickapog Road, and they're all rain gardens or bioswales. We have a estimated 116 pounds of nitrogen annually being taken out of the stormwater system that's going straight into Old Town, and that will help keep Old Town in the water quality that it currently is by just turning off the spigot of nitrogen going into that pond. We do have algae blooms there occasionally, but not as bad as it could be. And so we're just trying to stop it before it has a chance to get worse. So that's the first one. Second one is Phillips, is it? Yep, Phillips Pond, the next one down to the far end. It's the far east end pond. We are looking at doing 6 bioretention basins and rain gardens along the right-of-ways and it has a smaller watershed. So that one is 25 pounds of nitrogen that will be stopping from getting into that pond. And then the last one is Wickapog Pond, and that's the middle pond. and I just want to make sure I have the right number. It's looking at 4 bioretention basins, rain gardens along the right-of-ways, and that one is a little larger watershed, and that one is 34 pounds of nitrogen. So the biggest one is Old Town, mainly due to the watershed being bigger with the hospital and things upstream, and then the other ones are a little smaller with more residential and larger lots further down the road. I'm glad to help you
Yes,
answer any questions.
Let me, because it's a fair amount of money for bioswales. I just want to better understand the efficacy maybe of these bioswales. Because you have these little inner ponds.
Yep.
And there's certainly roads and there's road runoff. I mean, I bike in these areas quite a bit. It's not a lot of traffic, you know.
Correct.
It's not a super highway of any sort.
Right.
So I guess you're catching when it rains, if it, whatever hydrocarbons might be in the road, or maybe some pesticides or fertilizers from
Yep, and
nearby
the-
houses, but
Yep.
are those, is that the main stressor to these porta potties, or is it really nitrogen from the sanitary systems of the houses around them? And are we focusing on the wrong thing here? Because we're using quite a bit of water quality money to do what might have very small impact.
So for Old Town, there is another project going in currently, which is the treated wetlands that's taking water out of the groundwater, bringing it to the surface, and treating that water. So for Old Town, we're doing both. There's another project by a different engineer. I know enough to be trouble here, so I won't go into all the details. But that one is being taken care of as well. And so we're really trying to get both for Old Town Pond. And you're right, nitrogen in the groundwater is a major contributor. But for Old Town, we also know that it's the hospital and all of that impervious surface upstream that is coming to Old Town that we're worrying about. And it's not just the roads; it's all the water flushing to the road as well. So it's fertilizers and things like that. But here's the bigger one, is our leaves and seeds and grass clippings actually have a higher load of nitrogen in our stormwater than the hydrocarbons that I'm worried about coming from the drips and drops from the cars. So it's really trying to think about it as an overall thought process. And our roads are urban streams. The water runs down these roads, and whatever's in the road is then being transported to our system. So by having a whole series of little rain gardens upstream, it has a chance to capture, slow down, and stop it from even getting to the pond itself.
So
then the
happens-
Wickapog and Phillips, they're smaller watershed, smaller amount of roads, smaller amount of nitrogen and phosphorus that we're trying to worry about. But those are, all 3 of these are freshwater ponds, and phosphorus is just as much of a concern in that regard.
So if you're managing for, say, hydrocarbons from the road, seems like you'd put in storm drains and with, filters, like, kitty litter type of filters that they
Yeah.
remove the filtration media and then that gets carted off somewhere.
Right.
It doesn't, phytoremediation on oil is not necessarily the best approach. I don't know, maybe it is.
So for bioretention basins, rain gardens, and bioswales, the hydrocarbons and heavy metals, so every time you step on the brake of your car, you're leaving cadmium and zinc and things behind. The hydrocarbons are the drips and drops off the cars. They get to our bioswales and they're caught in the top 4 centimeters of that soil. The hydrocarbons that you mentioned is being broken down by bacteria and sunlight. So if you remember the big oil brake line, New Horizon in the Gulf of Mexico, they saw all this oil coming out of the ground, but they couldn't really quite figure out where a lot of it went. And they eventually determined that it was from bacteria breaking it down. It's the same on the land. So when I started doing this, in '97, we originally thought bioretention basins would last about 20 years, and we were going to have to rip out the top 4 centimeters because of the hydrocarbons. we're finding that the lifespan of a bioretention basin now is between 50 to 200 years, depending on the amount of carbon and heavy metals and things going in before we're going to have to remove. And so they are doing a much better job than that system that has to be heavily maintained.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right, other questions?
It's interesting, the runoff that you experience, particularly from grass clippings and applied fertilizers and all that kind of stuff. How close are you to the sub-watershed? I mean, I'm curious how contributory that particular water body is to.
So, yeah, that's a very good question. So Old Town, we are, the closer you get to Old Town Pond, the groundwater is about 3 feet under the soil. When you get closer to the hospital, you're in that 5 to 8 foot range. So we have a lot more opportunity for cleaning. And remember, you only need about 2 feet of healthy soils with plant roots to get to cleaning to drinkable standards. So we're really going to be doing a really good job up further.
And you're managing it against the sub-watershed study and
correct,
motion
correct.
and all that.
Everything was part of the sub-watershed study.
Great.
And then Phillips and Wickapog were further up, so we're in that 5 to 8 foot range as well, before groundwater.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, and anyone, thank you, Rusty.
Yeah, no problem.
Anyone else who wishes to be heard on these 3 grant requests from Southampton Village? All right, seeing no.
question.
Mr. D'Angelo, question?
Can I question this, Mr. Bouvier? I mean, is that all right?
This is not a time to give questions to the town board. Rhetorical, but specific, no.
Well, my question is this, that, again, with the equity, I mean, this tremendous amount of money being spent in the villages. We don't have a village. We can't even apply for these things.
Again, sir, this was for this particular application.
Well, this is a particular thing, like, what can we do?
Mr. D'Angelo, just in all due respect, so you don't have a village, but you have civics, you have all kinds of organizations within.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Any of them could make requests. If you have a project and we have technical expertise, we can help you develop projects, rather than just complain that you're.
I'm not complaining, I'm asking.
Okay,
Yeah.
but there's only one minor request from the Hampton Bays area. Look, Shinnecock Bay, Tiana Bay, these are all, major important water bodies.
But it's pretty obvious that we
And
don't-
we have money, grant money available. If nobody makes requests, then we don't have the ability to make that award.
Well,
So
in the
I would
pa-
just ask you to work with some of the technical professionals, try to figure out what would be the best remediation strategies for the water body, and make those requests through the civic, through any of the organizations. Hey, Hampton Bays Beautification, any of them could make a request for a water quality project.
Yeah, but-
And we're happy to assist you with our technical expertise. So, we do this each year. You're fully aware of it. If you have some ideas that could help improve water quality in the bay, please, we're happy
Well,
to
you guys are
assist.
fully aware of this. This doesn't happen in a vacuum. You could see that Hampton Bays is being overlooked. It could come down from you guys that say,
Well,
look,
you have a board of trustees, right?
Excuse me?
You have SOMAS right in the heart of, that area. We have the School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences. We have Cornell Cooperative Extension. We have a lot of.
Well, it
boards-
hasn't happened in the past. I'm saying, where's your,
Well, we
you
did.
are elected officials. Where do you see you guys doing this for us?
I secured $1 million for Shinnecock Bay through Governor Cuomo's office to study different strategies for improving water quality in Shinnecock Bay. We've done massive restoration of shellfish beds in Shinnecock Bay. In fact,
Shinnecock Bay on the western shore is a dead bay, really.
No, it's not at all. In fact,
Oh, yeah,
there
I do.
hasn't
I
been-
live there. I know
Right,
it goes.
excuse me.
No,
So
it's not.
There hasn't been a brown
Yes, it
tide-
is, Mr. Bouvier. You
Excuse
want to
me.
come over?
Excuse me,
I'll
I'm
take you
answering
on
your
a tour.
question. So
He
you asked
said
me-
that, but I agree with him.
You asked me a question, so Shinnecock Bay is at, I think, maybe 9 years now.
Why don't you guys come down and I'll give you a tour?
Can I speak? Excuse me. So you asked me a question, I'm trying to answer. Just a little respect, Mr. D'Angelo. So we
Well,
have.
respect goes both ways.
You did it again.
Okay, well, I just want to
Yeah,
inform you.
I guess maybe you don't want an answer to your question.
Yeah,
You asked
maybe-
me a question about what we were doing for Shinnecock Bay. I tried to answer you, but you interrupted me. I'll watch the video.
Well,
at
he
least 4
interrupted
times.
me. Okay? Come on. it works both ways.
Watch Dr. Gobler's State of the Bay, and you'll see all the years without the brown tides. You'll see all the work being done in Shinnecock Bay to improve it. And I encourage you to be part of the
Well, I'm
solution.
doing what Mr.
Be
Bouvier
part of
said.
the solution, Mr.
I'm
Angelo.
discussing all the programs issued on this hearing, and it's pretty obvious that we're not even, other than that one.
Well, nobody's going to get to speak if Mr. D'Angelo is going to interrupt each person who speaks. So I'm going to ask Mr. D'Angelo to sit down and we'll.
I am going to sit down because you're not going to satisfy me with an answer.
Clearly.
Mr.
So,
Supervisor,
when you
I
sit
would like
down,
to-
I know I will give deference to the board. I think some people wanted to make some comments. I'll start with Councilman Scavone.
Sure. This is the second tranche of requests. In the first group of requests, there were two from the Hampton Bays area, one for $609,000, another for $250,000 for the sewage treatment plan. And then, of course, you just heard the Tiana Bay requests as well. So that may not be a satisfactory answer, but we are considering
You
it.
wanna say that?
No, except I think we're on number 20.
All right, so we'll
Just
get
real quick. So we have put bioswales into the parking lots of Pond Parks. As we redesign Tiana, we'll be doing the same thing there. The highway department is working on some water quality requests for drainage in the hamlet of Hampton Bays. And any bioswales or anything like that you may want to add to a parking lot or any of the roads in Hampton Bays, the beautification is a perfect place to do that.
Another, I think, important project that improves water quality in the bay is when we put the filtration for manganese and iron at Field 4, it meant that we didn't have to use as much orthopolyphosphate, which is a sequestering agent in the water, which happens to have phosphate in it, phosphorus, which eventually works its way into the bay. So that's also, it wasn't done as a water quality project, but it has a significant impact potentially on improving water quality. And a lot of our focus has been on drinking water, but we also have focused on water quality in the bays with the numerous projects. So
So if there's anything specific, talk to me, we'll try to package it for the board.
Okay. All right, so we did the three village ones, so I think the only one, there's one left.
What number? Thank you.
Number 21, no?
No,
The Conscience Point parking lot stormwater improvement design? Okay, so Conscience Point parking lot stormwater improvement design requested by the Southampton Historical Museum. And we have people here to speak on behalf of this. So come on forward. Sarah, and I don't know your name.
My name is Gabriella. I'm from Arias Design Landscape Architecture. Good afternoon. So yes, we are here with Sarah from the Southampton History Museum. She's here as well in support. So what we've presented to you is we would like to gain funds for design services to promote green infrastructure practices regarding bioswales and rain gardens for permeable pavement for the area of the parking lot that leads into the marina. So as many of you know, North Sea Harbor has been facing many challenges as far as the pollutant discharges, primarily from stormwater runoff. This not only impacts the ecosystem, but potentially affects the recreational activities, local businesses, and the natural beauty of the harbor as well. So without any intervention of the pollutants, we're gonna see, a upset in the natural balance of the environment that currently exists in the harbor. And we're hoping that with the request for the funds to design these features, that we can remediate the issues of the pollutants that are currently flooding through that area. And we've been in constant contact with the History Museum and then with the neighbors as well, the Racemans. They neighbor the they're the neighboring property right next door. And that's Howard and Ann Raceman. And they're very supportive of the project as they are directly impacted as well by the rush of stormwater that comes through this corridor. And so we're hoping that, we can introduce the bioswales along the right-hand side of the road, and then also at the end of the parking lot where the trail starts. And so in doing so, we can redirect the storm flow into these bioswales and the rain gardens and try to protect the integrity of the water that's, clearly being affected by these, by the water runoff.
All right, thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, I do, because both of these are labeled Conscious Point, and they both have a request for an IA system. And getting to your point, this is a perfect way to combine those two applications and save both sides some money. So that would be a good, you're both smiling, so I'm assuming, yeah.
Yes.
All right,
We
good.
have actually been in contact with the architect previously on the projects, but we currently have not had proper funds to begin our design work and to have that potential to collaborate with the hatchery to collectively create what we're trying to do as far as
Great. So it may solve
remediations.
two problems.
So, yes, that is our intent. We would
Okay.
like to solve two problems in one. I believe that their application, they have, I don't want to speak on their behalf,
Oh,
but,
that's perfect. Thank you.
that's-
Thank you.
So this was recommended for full funding by the committee, but there was also a note that the committee encourages the museum to provide educational signage and materials to promote public awareness of green infrastructure, given the public visibility at this site. Just so you know.
Yes, and that is an intention in the design as well. And we've briefly discussed the design process with the History Museum, and again, the Racemans are very involved, and they're very. Everybody would like to have the signage there because the educational signage is also going to get people to understand the area and the history, as well as what we're doing to remediate and protect the space.
Sarah, there's something you wanted to add?
Just to reemphasize again, this is to support the design and the planning. So this is not the proposal, any kind of,
Understood.
the hardscape. It's just some ideas of what we're going to work towards. And, as we continue, of course, we'll, happy to work with the town, happy to work with the advisory board as part of that process. But as our consultant said, this is to help us get that process going so we can be sure we have everybody we need at the table and some funding to support that. And one thing I wanted to mention too, this is, if anybody has been down there, we've been doing a lot of great programming lately with kayak tours in partnership with the Shinnecock Nation. Some folks doing tours for us in partnership. We have a camp that uses the kayaks on the launch. And we've been neighbors of the town as well. So I think this will be the start of a really important rehab of that whole space to provide more access to ensure that it occurred to me as we run up into the fourth centennial, 2040. This will be a very important site. Of course, it's the sort of our Plymouth Rock, for lack of a better word. So this is the beginning of steps towards making this more accessible, more environmentally friendly. If anybody's been down there, it gets really kind of difficult to navigate, and everybody, our partners, our neighbors, and our visitors and the participants in those really great programs, I think everything is just going to be supported and enhanced by this. And
All right, thank you, sir.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone from the audience wishing to be heard on this grant request? All right, and the one thing I probably should do is go back to our online audience. So this public hearing number 2 is on all of these grant requests. And is there anyone with their hand raised?
No, sir.
All right, let me give one more moment, just in case.
No audience.
Oh, there's no audience, so perfect. Okay, in that case, Jackie, I guess we'll make a motion to close the public hearing, but leave the written record open for 2 weeks. Is that satisfactory?
Yes, that's absolutely fine.
And that will allow Mayor Truehold, and there was another one that was looking to be modified.
Conscience Point,
Conscience
Shellfish
Point,
Hatchery.
Yeah, that's right, Mark Matthews, right. So, all right, so I will make that motion to close the public hearing and leave the written record open for 2 weeks.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Jackie, maybe I can go.
Yeah, and I just wanted to again thank the advisory board, water quality.
Yeah,
Advisory
you guys,
Committee,
you do a great job.
Stephanie Davis, Anthony Graves, Chris Clapp, Andrew Brosnan, and Will Peckman. They just have done a great job, and also Emily Estration, our senior environmental analyst, and Dan for providing counsel.
It's a good group.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
For that. Stephanie, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to reiterate my thank yous to the committee members, which is Chris Clapp and Anthony Graves, Andy Brosnan, and Will Peckham, as well as the town team that helped us get through this process every year. Every year we have seen an increasing number of applications. We've seen, I think, better applications as time has gone on, things that are more complete and more well-documented, which makes our job easier when applicants have everything on the table and have done their homework. So, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of the applicants back with us next year for maybe construction aspects of their projects for which the studies are being done this coming year. So thank everybody for their help on this.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, and I called the voter, right?
Yes.
Okay.
You did.
All right, so what I'd like to do then is to move on to public portion. In this section, the public is invited to comment on any of the subjects, any topic they desire. I have a number of people who have filled out cards to speak in public portion. Again, each speaker will be given 3 minutes to make their comments known. And we will start with Renee Mornson. Is Renee here? Renee left? Okay. All right, so next is Gail Lombardi.
Hi, good afternoon. You guys, probably get paid for somewhere between 20 and 40 hours a week and probably do 60 to 80 hours a week worth of work, and I get that. But to that, I just want to, Jim left, my condolences to Jim. I passed his brother's picture every day for I don't know how long. I parked my car in Tudor City when I worked in Manhattan, and they had his brother's picture up. It had to be over a year, and they named the street after Jim's brother. So I definitely understand where everybody's coming from about 9/11. That being said, I usually, my boyfriend had a heart attack, but when I look at the town board agenda, sometimes I feel like I'm going to have one. So I think it's town board, first of all, I don't know if Nelson Pope and Voorhees is still here, but
1021, I think you said.
Yeah, 1021 is the town board resolution for the CCA. But 1031, once again, you're hiring Nelson Pope without the benefit of competitive bid. McLean, again, a lot of these engineering firms hiring without the benefit of competitive bid. I'm not a government expert, but I think at some point, sole source contracting is not really what should be going. They get way too comfortable when you know the consultants' first names when they're working for the developers. I have a problem with that. The second thing is just to capitalize. I really came to talk about the CCA, but to capitalize on some of the water quality things, you are our commissioners. And I think in 2019, I think it was Mark Schiffer mentioned at the 2019 public hearing of the school board at the senior center, you're collecting $30 million from a bunch of middle-class people. Why don't you look for other funding? And Supervisor Snyderman said, we got this filter. You should be putting in those water quality for us. I mean, we depend on you to save us money. My water bills are tremendous, and, you know, I don't water my lawn, or, you know, I don't overuse my water. It's just me and my partner at the house. So, but I'm here to talk about 1021. 1021 is the CCA. You're moving forward on the CCA based on false and misleading information. Once again, you have a resolution for 100% renewable energy by 2025. Well, unless you're building a nuclear plant, I don't think that's happening, okay? So you're moving forward on CCA for the town of Southampton, thinking you're doing us a benefit, and I understand you're trying to do a benefit. But if you look at the current data, and this ties also into the BESS system and just this whole renewable energy, you're not. Look at what's going on in Westchester. Right now, people are trying to opt out. There's reports from December of 2022 where the Con Edison bills are 35% higher on the renewable energy. ISO itself put out a report. Their goals were for 2040, not even 2025. There are 3 serious problems. One, a need for unprecedented, again, you're going to have to give me some leeway reading my notes here, unprecedented rapid build-out of wind and solar power. There's no way that they can meet those goals through wind and solar. A critical reliance on energy sources that are not yet economically viable. And 3, service transmission congestion. So you're moving forward on providing CCA, which most people don't even understand in town of Southampton, opting in, opting out, potentially costing us more money, paying, you know, paying for this consultant to move forward. I think it's time you step back on all this renewable energy with our energy system. This involves the BESS system. This involves everything. Step back, take a big look at what really could be done to, you know, help our energy sources, help our bills, and is that me? And help, you know, and bring us forward on a really responsible basis based on all the facts. So I truly respect if you can table that resolution. Thank you.
All right,
Thank
thank you, Ms. Lombardi. All right, Bill Manger, I don't think Mayor Manger is still here.
He had to leave. He left his comments here with me, which I'll distribute to you after the
Okay.
meeting.
Thank you. Then we have Bernice. How do you say the last name?
Haas.
Haas?
H-A-A-S-E.
H-A-A-A-H-A-A? Double A, H-A-A-S-E? Okay.
Well, you all know my name now. All right. First of all, I want to say that I lived in state housing, low-income housing, middle-income housing, and it wasn't fun. I mean, laundry could be taken. There was a lot of problems with screaming, and I won't get into it, but when we talk about Liberty Gardens, it's much worse because these are emotional and psychiatric problems. And they're veterans who are from all over the country. I mean, they're not from Southampton, they're not from the Hamptons, they're not from our town. I think we need to do more for our veterans than just place them in a facility off of Route 39 where they're not getting the kind of care they really need. I mean, these problems, emotional, psychiatric problems, they need doctors, they need psychiatrists, they need nurses and jobs, and they need family participation. I mean, they'll be put with roommates who have the same psychiatric problems as they have. And, by the way, what do they do all day? They have nothing to do. I mean, this is a problem for disaster. I mean, you put guys, veterans in a facility, and they have nothing to do all day. I understand that there will be a population of vets, and they need to be housed in a facility where they can be properly taken care of, not dumped in front of Route 39, and we all know the problems we have with traffic. It's all a position of disaster. And, you know, you just picture this, of all these men not having something to do, and I'm just thinking about what a disaster this would be, and I wonder why this is coming up at all, because this is not our population. This is a population from all over the country.
30 seconds.
So I'm just wondering why the board, why Jay, why do you want to have this facility here? Why are you thinking of ruining our town and village as it stands now? Thank you.
Thank you, Bernice.
Thank you.
Okay, Ray D'Angelo, did you want to speak again? I think it was senior center parking this time.
I just want to take a minute or 30 seconds to say that the 5 of you are the water commissioners, Hampton Bays Water District. We could use a lot of these programs there. Wouldn't you guys be the guys that would apply for the grants? I mean, you are commissioners. No, really. I mean, this has got going back and forth here, and now, you know, you dumped it back on it, I'm dumping it back on you.
There is a provision where we can help using water quality money if there's emerging contamination, which you do have those, you know, the PFAS.
Well, those filters need to be winterized. That's gonna be $2 million probably to winterize them. They're not exposed to the elements. Sorry about that.
So there's restrictions in general on water quality funds. So like I mentioned, iron and manganese, you couldn't use water quality funds to remove iron and manganese. It's not on the listed things that are allowable. I don't even know if you can use it to filter out PFAS in a water district. It is possible that people on private wells, you can use the money to connect them. It's something we can certainly look into.
Okay.
You know.
All right, I'm going to talk about something. And first of all, I want to thank Cindy McNamara for coming to the senior center. She had lunch with us, and we discussed some of the solutions of which has now become like a parking crisis. Since then, it's gotten worse because Tesla now is going to install, I think it's going to be 16 charging units, and we're going to lose 16 more spots. The other thing is the town cars. It's a little better than it was, but we came up with some suggestions, and she worked with us. And again, I came here today. I thought maybe I could help. You know, get you guys behind it. And one of them was like, we only have four handicap spots. Now, almost everybody in that place has a handicap sticker. You know, I mean, I'm even eligible for one, but I don't get one. I can walk, but we only have 4 spots. The second thing is that we discussed is that when they come there in the morning, the staff, when they get there early, like 7 o'clock.
Can I just ask cell phone ringers to be turned off so we're not interrupted? Thank you.
I put mine on
It
airplane.
wasn't you, right?
So they come there, and half the parking lot is already filled with cars, because people come there, they park, they carpool.
She answered it.
They come there and carpool, and those spots are lost. You with me now?
I'm trying to. Somebody just took a phone call, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay. And those spots are lost. So then when we get to like the critical time, which is like 11 to 1, where people come to eat, and I go there to socialize. I don't need it, but there's a lot of people that come there that need that meal. Okay, so I'm just asking, maybe we all can work together to try to come up with a solution to this. They can't park. A lot of them, like, they can't walk, but they can drive. So they drive their cars there, or they have the carpool, and they can't get spots. It's gotten worse. I mean, Hampton Bays is growing. The parking lot all year, summer has been packed. You know, we have more people here since COVID that stay over. They don't just come here seasonally. We have more developments going on in Hampton Bays. It's packed. Across the street, the people that take the commuter train on Good Ground Road, that's all full of spots. It's impossible to try to mail a letter because you can't get in that parking lot that's by the post office. I mean, I park way down across the street, down by the ambulance, and I walk, which is probably good for me, but these other people can't. So
30 seconds.
I just want to know, there's got to be, we came up with some ideas. I don't know why we can't implement them, like telling the people they can't park overnight, so they can't, they can't park to maybe 8 o'clock, so they can't come there at 6:30 in the morning and start parking across the carpool, so we don't lose those spots. Maybe we can increase the handicap spots. And the other thing that I would like to see is from like 11 to 1, have spots that, senior parking between 11 and 1, and you issue us stickers for our cars. So, because these people need your help, and I really am appealing to you. I mean, if you could do something, I really would go a long way, and they would be very appreciative. And again, I want to thank Cindy. She came down, and Cindy McNamara, she came down and worked with us, and the ladies want me to invite you again to play bingo. So, anyway, thank you very much.
I know, Rick, you were one of the liaisons.
Yeah, I
to
mean,
that
I wish Jim
community.
was here, because Jim had been working on some of the issues we had with that parking lot, on what we could actually do and not do, so.
All right, so you're going to continue to work on it?
But we do have, it's a shared lot, so we did identify some of the issues. There are some businesses that are parking there overnight, and there'll be 3, say, minivans for a cleaning service that park there at night. And in the morning, 3 employees for each van come with their personal cars. So now you have 9 vehicles parked where those 3 vans were overnight for the entire day. So the first thing we had to do, and which Ryan has done, is every code enforcement, every town vehicle is now parking across in the extra lot.
The one
so
we
that-
just built?
So that we can have it placarded for no overnight parking, and it can be, because none of our vehicles are there anymore. So we're moving towards the process of getting this done, and we had talked about adding 4 more handicap spots in the front, because they were asking for all of the handicap spots in the front of the building, but having spoken with code enforcement and the senior center and the clerk's office, what we're gonna rather do is take those other spots up front and make them 15-minute parking. So that if somebody comes to drop a senior off for lunch or wants to run into the clerk's office or code enforcement, they can park there and there's parking available.
Okay.
So we're working towards getting it.
Thank you, Cindy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I think Ryan had originally had some stats too as to enforcement of people who were abusing the handicap, even those small amounts.
Yeah.
And it was pretty high.
It's a lot.
Yeah, okay, good.
All right, I trust that you guys will work together to find some viable solutions on that. All right, Jen Hartnagel?
Good afternoon. I think I picked the wrong public portion to speak at today. My name is Jen Hartnagel, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Group for the East End. I'm here today to address the final environmental impact statement for the Liberty Gardens proposal that's being reviewed by you, the lead agency. On behalf of the group, we respectfully request that you not accept the findings of the FEIS at this point, and that you seek additional information by requiring a supplemental environmental impact statement. I have a few broad areas that I'd like to cover and that support that reasoning. They come from a planning, zoning, and environmental perspective. We found that there are major inadequacies within the FEIS which failed to address the project's cumulative impacts. And without this information and analysis, we don't believe that the town board, acting as lead agency, can responsibly move forward with this project at this time. One of the topics was the sanitary wastewater. The FEIS concludes that they can't have the discharge area on site, and so that they're going to have to use either the nursing home nearby or find an off-site parcel. So this information is just left hanging in the air. This is information that you need to know as the lead agency to make an informed decision. You need to know the impacts of both of these alternatives, and if it's even possible to treat the sewage at this point from 50-plus units. The other issue is the development potential on Lot 1. We have maintained from the get-go that within the SEQRA review, you need to have an entire picture analysis of the development potential of the entire lot. You're subdividing the parcel into two pieces, and the front development is just left out of the FEIS. It's not examined at all. And we believe you're risking segmentation at that point. To conclude in the FEIS that the church will remain in perpetuity is just poor planning. The church could change their mind at any point, and you have no idea what the development potential on that lot and the impacts that it will create in a cumulative fashion with what's proposed. So again, a supplemental environmental impact statement should cover this information. The other area which is woefully inadequate was the traffic impact analysis. The FEIS concluded that this project would have no impact on traffic on County Road 39. At this point, it's almost laughable. How can there be all of these large-scale traffic studies from these large-scale projects and they all conclude that there's no impact when you know full well the situation we're dealing with is so bad that the county had to put out an RFP to try and mitigate some of these concerns. Related to this traffic issue, the FEIS failed to address significant comments from the Suffolk County Department of Public Works regarding left-hand turns out of that proposal. The Suffolk County Department of Public Works, and there's a letter right in the file, suggests that they can't make left-hand turns. The FEIS ignored these statements. They also, the Suffolk County Department of Public Works also asked for alternative egress and ingress, aside from just having the sole access point on County Road 39. Again, the FEIS disregarded these recommendations. The project is also, in our view, inconsistent with the County Road Corridor Study, and the final scope that you adopted states that. The FEIS continues to argue that it's consistent and that, or it's just a planning study and it can be disregarded. The FEIS also didn't fully explain how the density arbitrarily dropped from 60 to 50 and stated that this was due to the community's density concerns and an effort to reduce environmental impact.
30 seconds.
Which, by the way, all of these documents said there was none. So again, an SEIS would cover all of these topics in more detail, and without this information, we don't believe that you as the lead agency can responsibly move forward. So we're asking you at this time to please consider not adopting the findings within the FEIS and consider requiring an SEIS. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
I have a detailed comment letter that has citation and notes that speak to the specifics of what I just broadly addressed. Thank you.
Just give it to the clerk, please. All right, Jay Deesing.
Good afternoon, Supervisor Schneiderman and town board members. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today and for all that you do for our town. I recognize what a difficult job you have, and I appreciate your efforts. My name is Jay Deesing, and I'm president of the Southampton Association, a community preservation and service group founded more than 60 years ago in the village of Southampton. I want to speak to you briefly on the Liberty Gardens project. We're greatly concerned about the location, impact, and legality of this project in our community. We have sought counsel from the law firm of Meyer, Swazi, English, and Klein, and our concerns are addressed in a letter from them delivered to you electronically yesterday, and I will provide a hard copy of that letter today. Many of our more than 300 members have significant concerns about the feasibility, safety, and impact of the project, and specifically about the completeness, accuracy, and details in the FEIS, which has recently been submitted. But to cut to the chase, I think this whole issue can really be best summarized by one question. Where's the beef? Despite numerous meetings, volumes of documents with facts and figures, one would have assumed that the long-standing issues and the newly raised issues would have been fully and fairly addressed. Instead, within 650 pages of documents, these issues, concerns, and inaccuracies go unmentioned, unexplained, unresolved, or ultimately unbelievable. That's unacceptable. The FEIS does not adequately address the unsafe entrance and exit, the significant septic and water quality issues, traffic safety and congestion on County Road 39, potential development across the road or of the remaining parcel as required by New York state law. The list of inaccuracies and omissions goes on, but I'll spare you any more details. I think you know them. The key is that you cannot ignore them. Once approved, this project can't be undone. Our town is already suffering from years of over and unbalanced development. Please don't add to that list of mistakes. Do not accept the developer's findings. They are incomplete, inaccurate, and biased. You have a fiduciary responsibility to residents of this town, and accepting this statement without further study would be a dereliction of that duty. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, Francis Genovese is next.
My name is Frances Genovese, and I live on Bishop's Lane in the village of Southampton. And I'm going to speak now for a whole bunch of people who wanted to speak and who are timed out by the length of this meeting today. But since you have decided that Liberty Gardens is to be under review again, I want to speak to just one aspect of the process. I would like to remind you to, if you recall, the egregious public hearing that was held here last October. At that meeting, this board allowed the public to be insulted, vilified, and physically threatened by Mr. Fasano and some of the people that he brought here, encouraged by Mr. Daly. Veterans were bussed in to plead or accuse people of insensitivity. Excuse me?
Okay, this is public portion, but,
No,
okay, you're going to address this?
Well, I'm really not. Ms. Genovese, just continue with your story.
Make sure that I gain the time back that you have interrupted me from. Veterans were bussed in to plead or accuse people of insensitivity, of forgetting their sacrifices in their war services, because they had been told that no one wanted them here. This mayhem was created by the town representing to the public that Liberty Gardens was for desperately needed, affordable local workforce housing, and not veterans or disabled housing. And concern for independent living went along with it while telling the veterans that the public opposed housing for them. This was a mutual lie. The town knew from day one that concern for independent living builds facilities in partnership with the State Office of Mental Health, which funds them. They are bound to provide in their own statements, both in their mission statements and in their accounting statements to the government, quote, that they provide affordable housing with supplemental treatment programs operated to meet the physical, emotional, and social needs of persons with psychiatric disabilities, veterans, homeless people, low-income individuals, and other families. It is necessary to tell the veterans who spoke at that meeting that they deserve housing and the best society provides. They were misled in coming here. And it is necessary to tell this board that when a facility such as this is considered, let alone when a need has been established for it in this community, but when a facility such as this is considered, you must do due diligence, provide full disclosure to the community that will be affected by it, and it must be put out for referendum so that the public can vote on it. This board and your planning backup have failed on all counts. You owe the public an apology. You owe the veterans an apology. And if you want to redeem yourself, you can reject this proposal. It was fraudulently presented.
Okay. And the last card I have is Leith McLaughlin. Okay. All right, understood. So we do have people potentially, maybe even including those individuals online. So we'll go to our remote audience. Charles, do we have anybody looking to be heard in public portion? Nobody.
I
All right.
apologize, I had a family issue.
Okay, no worries. All right, so I will, is there anyone here who would want to be heard on any other issues? No. Who didn't fill out a card? Okay, I'll make a motion to close public portion.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so do you guys want 3 minutes to stretch? Yes, how about 5 minutes? So let's take a
Let
five.
us go home.
We've been sitting here for 3 hours, right? So let's.
So what's another
The
20
traffic
minutes?
is.
Let's take 5
Here,
minutes.
we can get through it. If everybody else wants to get through it, I'm fine.
No, let's take 5 minute recess. 5 minute recess, we'll reconvene. It is 4:12 right now, so 4:17. Okay?
You sure you don't want to make it 16?
4:17. Let me get some water here.
That makes the traffic
Stretch my
going
legs.
west fierce.
We're probably still recording.
All right, we are resuming. We're going to town board resolutions. We're going to start with resolution 1004, offered by Councilman Tommy John Scavone.
This is Town Board Resolution 1004 of 2023, resolution of adoption amending Chapter 64 -6.4 hazardous accumulations to enhance enforcement ability. This is going to be tabled to 9/26. There is some new wording, specifically that the change was made from enforcement from authorized staff of the Department of Public Safety to specific authorized staff by qualified hazardous materials teams, operation, and certified law enforcement officers. That resolution, and there's one or two other things. That resolution is on your desk for the proper 10-day waiting period, and it does not need to be renoticed.
All right, I'll second the motion to
Are
table.
we withdrawing it or tabling it?
Table it.
Table it.
I seconded the motion.
Did I say withdraw?
What's 105? The next
You
is
said
what-
table.
what- is this
One oh-
pertaining to it too,
The
or-
motion was
He
to
said
table. I was trying to,
So it's coming back with the change in wording, but the same resolution number?
yeah,
Correct.
just to be
Okay.
amended, potentially.
Correct.
So there's a
So the
motion.
motion is to table
Believe it-
1004
believe
to
you're substituted,
9/26.
It'll be amended
Yeah.
at that point.
All right, so I seconded the motion to table. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 1005 of 2023, this is the resolution of adoption of amending Chapter 164-6.5 penalties to increase the penalty for 164-6.4 hazardous accumulations. I'd like to make a motion to table this to 9/26 as well.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so that was tabled. Both of those were tabled. 1017 of 2023. This resolution authorizes purchases from Rockland County Contracts with East Coast Engineering and Lighting.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved.
1018 of 2023, authorized supervisor to execute an agreement with Sherry Winehouse as host for Sun TV, Sun 20-TV.
Second?
This is, okay, seconded by Councilman Martell, and I think we get a grant from the hospital on this one to do this. All right, we have motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
It's cut the shows in half, as I understand it.
They
It's
still
the number
match,
of
right?
shows,
Yeah.
it's still the same, but it's less
Okay.
shows.
Okay. Yeah, they do provide, the Stony Brook Hospital provides some funding for this Your Health Matters show. All right,
Town Board Resolution 1020 of 2023 is co-sponsored.
10,
Oh, I'm sorry, am I in the wrong place?
1019. the
Oh,
one
I'm
above
sorry.
it.
I jumped. Town Board Resolution 1019 of 2023, co-sponsored with Councilwoman McNamara, is authorize the supervisor to sign a contract with Paint Care New York LLC for New York Post-Consumer Paint Collection Program.
Second?
seconded by Councilwoman McNamara, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 1020 of 2023, co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone, is to authorize the supervisor to sign an indemnification and hold harmless agreement between the town of Southampton and 26 Main Street Owners Corp.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved. 1021 of 23.
If you don't mind, I'd like to be added as co-sponsor with us.
On 1021?
Yes, please.
All right. Madam Clerk, would you add Councilman Bouvier as co-sponsor on 1021? All right. This authorizes supervisor to sign memorandum of understanding with Jewel Assets, Inc., in furtherance of conditional authorization to execute electricity supply agreement as part of Community Choice Aggregation Program.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, and there's a timeliness issue because we don't actually know yet if the proposals are going to meet the criteria, but if they do, we have a limited time to take advantage of it, so this sort of pre-authorizes me to execute if they do meet those conditions. Everybody
So-
understands that?
Yes.
Can I also, on the motion, this is, as was mentioned before, it was stated that this was being done to meet the town's renewable energy goals. This is actually being done to find the most affordable rate for our ratepayers. The renewables being secondary to that. And, you know, I'd just like to say, like, I went in with my actual electric bills before we decided what our cutoff point was. And, you know, that's what we're trying to beat, and if we can't beat that, then we don't sign a
Then we don't,
contract.
yep.
And, you know, we're not necessarily opting everybody into the 100% renewable, they can choose that option. We are looking for the most affordable option for our ratepayers.
Correct, and one other correction to someone at the dais was that the town is not paying for this. This isn't a direct contract. We're dealing with Jewel. Jewel is handling that, and as you said, if we don't get the right pricing, we won't move forward with it.
Right.
Pretty simple.
And even if we do move forward, there is no guarantee. It's impossible because we just don't know what the future conditions will be and the price of these utilities will be. There's no guarantee that this will lead to savings. We hope that it does, but there is a mechanism that is not supposed to be cumbersome, that will allow people to opt out if it turns out that it's not saving them. You know, the promise of lower utility bills is not being realized. So we can assist with that process and make it as, you know, facilitate that to the greatest degree. But the hope here is that there'll be substantial savings to our residents in terms of, you know, lowering their utility bills through this collective purchasing of energy. So,
And it also allows a resident to choose their source of power. So if you think about it, we're the third or fourth highest price for kilowatt hours in in a state in the country. This will also allow people to choose renewable sources if they want to, and it may be at somewhat of a premium, but some people are willing to do that. But it's not a new program. It's been around a while and with great success, so I'm looking forward. I'm hoping to see the RFPs. And
if
hopefully
nothing
we can
else,
move
it will
forward.
provide predictability because it fixes the rate.
Yep.
Whereas the energy market can fluctuate. It could go down, but it also could go up significantly, where our ratepayers will have consistent billing. But Rick?
Yeah, no, the goal here for me is less expensive electricity, and I hope that we can, you know, get to that goal. It's a lot of pressure on you, Supervisor, because you're gonna have to make that decision in a timely fashion when the numbers come in. So I just ask that you do kind of throw it past us before you make your final decision.
Yeah, you know, depending on time, I would be happy to do that. I'd rather make this decision collectively.
Yeah, and the decision's kind of made for you because of what's contained in the reso, you know.
If they beat the rate
If
that
they beat
we
the rate,
set as
then-
our bottom
right.
number, then it's far less than anything I've paid in the last 18 months, so.
And the rate is very important, and like Councilman Bouvier said, it does give our constituents a choice. There are those who may be able to choose to use 100 renewable energy sources to power their home.
No, I think this
So,
gives me
that's important.
the ability to decide our default. I would default to the lowest price, as long as it's at least as renewable as, you know, what they're currently getting. It can't be less renewable.
We won't know until we see the RFP responses.
But it would be nice if, you know, there may be people who may select more renewables and still be able to do that at a lower price than they're currently paying. And we just don't know yet
Just don't
until
know.
we see it, so. But that was also, you know, one of the primary motivators for me was the hope of delivering lower cost electricity. Of course, you know, having more renewable energy in the mix is an absolutely important additional benefit. So, we haven't voted though on that one, have we?
No.
No.
All right, and John, you said was co-sponsoring, so I'll call the vote.
I'll second.
I think you already did second.
You
right?
already did second, yes,
Okay,
we're just.
I'll second it for a second time.
All right.
How about all in favor?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. John, you're next.
Town Board Resolution, where am I, 2022?
Bottom of page 12.
Yeah. Town Board Resolution 1022 of 2023, co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone and Councilwoman McNamara. It's authorized the purchase of Deval Corp. for 88 improvements at East Quogue Marina on Bay Avenue in East Quogue.
Second?
Okay, seconded by Councilman McNamara, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. Before we continue, Tom and Tatiana, you guys are here for a particular resolution, right?
Yes.
I don't want to make you wait, so what's the resolution number?
1060.
Do we know what page it's on? I got it, it's page 46.
46.
Okay, so, all right, so I will make a motion to take 1060 of 2023, appointing Tatiana Tusi as Assistant Town Management Service Administrator position in Town Controller's Office out of order.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman
Councilman
Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so now I'll make a motion to approve 1060 of 2023, appointing Tatiana Tusi to Assistant Town Management Services Administrator position in Town Controller's Office.
Second.
Second, on the motion, Tom, you gonna be okay without her?
I'll be just fine. I think she's more of an asset to the town in this new position than she could be in my office, and I think it's fantastic.
Okay. So, yeah, that does a good one. So I had asked our town engineer, because right now Tatiana is providing assistant administrative types of services to the town engineering department. Was asking our town engineer, who happens to be present in the audience, whether he could survive without Tatiana. And although it may be challenging, he realizes that Tatiana can serve the town in even more in this elevated capacity as a assistant town management services administrator.
So Tatiana, I've known you quite a while, since I've been here, and I've watched what you've done. I'm so happy that you're taking this position, because I think you'll just be great at it. So good luck to you, and sorry, Tom.
And so I guess right now, your primary report would be to Dorothy in the controller's office, but this is a position that has important responsibilities both in HR as well as the controller's office. So it's gonna be a little bit complex in terms of your reporting, because, and also, town attorney's office too, as well, so.
I've worked with Tatiana. I had the pleasure of working with her when I was helping out in CPF and before we had Jackie.
I was gonna say, been there, done that.
Yeah, I know. And she was wonderful, incredibly organized, and I couldn't have done half of what I was able to get done without Tatiana, so she's
So a lot of
looking forward to working
components
with
to
her in
this
role.
position, but I'm sure that you'll be able to rise to the challenge. All right, so there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved. Congratulations, Tatiana. All right. Where were we?
13.
Page 13.
Thank you, guys.
On the bottom.
All right, which is my resolution, 1023 of 2023. This is authorizing a supervisor to execute a contract with Chaliff and Rogers Architects for Tiana Life Saving Station.
Second.
You just want to figure out who's my second?
John's a
All right,
co-sponsor.
second by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. 1024 of 23. Authorize the supervisor to execute an agreement with Lexipol for our online subscription for law enforcement policy manual.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. 1025 of 23, authorize supervisor to sign lease with trustees for all, I actually gonna, let me read it first, but I'm not sure this is needed. Authorize supervisor to sign lease with trustees for office space at 240 West Montauk Highway, Hampton Bays, New York. So I actually have a question, I think, for Jim. So, the board did not authorize the memorandum of agreement yet at this juncture, which, by the way, I have reached out already to the governor's office requesting an extension of time that the bill be signed. Without the trustee tax line, I don't know why we would need a lease with the trustees to be in the building. We don't have a lease with the trustees now to be in the space that they occupy. The clerk doesn't have a lease with us. The Parks Department doesn't have a lease with us. So why would the trustees need to have a lease for that building?
Well, I think even in the agreement, we talked about the payment of the rental, for the leased amount would not be in effect until the tax line was created. So as far as having a lease, I don't know, it's I guess one thing that it's in this building where they're in now, something else different. First of all, do we want to know for sure that they want to be in this 240 West?
I mean, if they, let's say they were in default of the lease, what can we do? I mean, they're, if we charge them, we're charging ourselves,
Yeah,
right?
we're
There's
not
no
looking
tax
at-
line.
Right, we're not looking to, I don't think
They're-
to charge
they're
them
in the
until,
general
if
fund
and when
taxes.
they get a tax line. But, I think this is all anticipation of them
This was in
obtaining the
anticipation of the
line.
tax line
Right.
ultimately, so that when they had the tax line, they had the freedom to choose their offices, but if they were in our office, they could move out, they'd have to give a certain amount of notice, but,
Right. I'm not sure that they're even in agreement with the lease at this point, so, I mean, if we want to hold it off, or we could.
Excuse me?
we-
They're not in agreement with the lease
Well,
that
I'm
we're
saying I'm not sure, I
considering
don't
right
know, I mean, it seems like
well,
everything is moving.
so
upstairs.
they're in our space now, right?
Okay.
Their offices are in this building, yet we do not have a lease.
So why don't we just table it and look into
Yeah,
it?
let's
for
table
next
it.
meeting?
It's a good way to quantify
You
the
know,
services that they're
And
getting.
it
Let's
seems
move
to
on.
me, if they want to move into that other building, they could do it tomorrow without a lease, right? Public
It's
safety
up to
doesn't
the
have a
board.
lease to be in the building that they're in Hampton Bays, so the,
No, we could do that, I mean,
I don't have a lease except James.
it's up to the board if you want to
well, Housing
work something
Authority
out
might
without a
have a lease.
lease.
They're, I don't know what if we probably don't own that building where
table it.
Housing Authority is. They own it. That's a different question, but the housing office you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, they're upstairs.
Office of Housing and Community Development was in the same building.
Kara.
Right.
I'm gonna make a motion to table
Yeah, I think that's appropriate for a number of reasons.
it. So I withdraw my motion to approve. I will make a motion to table 1025.
Second?
Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 1026 of 2023, excuse me, to authorize the supervisor to sign a 2023 contract in support of the trustees of freeholders and commonality of the town of East Hampton for water quality protection strategies.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier.
So the board knows this is $2,000 that we've been contributing to testing, ongoing testing of the Sag Harbor, the Upper Cove, and Sag Harbor, and it transcends boundaries between the town of East Hampton and the town of Southampton.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 1027 of 2023, authorize the supervisor to sign a sole source contract with Northeast Sweepers and Rentals Incorporated for Ravel Fayette Group Sweeper Parts and Service.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 1028 of 2023, co-sponsored with Councilman Bouvier, Councilman Schiavone, and Councilwoman McNamara. Authorize the supervisor to sign a contract with L.K. McLean Associates P.C. for professional services related to the installation of a new IA system at Hot Dog Beach.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Town Board, I'm sorry?
Yep.
Town Board Resolution 1029 of 2023, co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone, is to award and authorize the supervisor to sign a contract for the Reeves Bay Catwalk and Barn Restoration with Chesterfield Associates Incorporated.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor.
Me as well.
I think so, yes.
This was originally a project that I was involved in at the start. So,
It's the whole board.
so we're gonna have everybody co-sponsor here, Sunday?
I like it.
All right, so we had a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. 10:30 of 2023, declare item surplus and authorize disposal of vehicles.
Second?
Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 10:31 of 23, recall and amend resolution 2023-324, authorizing the supervisor to sign an extended contract with Nelson Pope Engineering, Architecture, and Land Surveying, PPLC, for Shinnecock Hills Extension.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 1032 of 2023, recall and amend Town Board Resolution 2023-913, authorizing an agreement with Toshiba America Business Solutions Incorporated for Bay Constable copy machines.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 1033 of 2023, co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone, is to recall and amend Town Board Resolution 2021-791 and 2023-707 for the distribution of the Community Development Block Grant Program, CDBG, COVID funds.
Second.
All right, seconded by Councilman Scavone. I wouldn't mind co-sponsoring this one too. There's a $30,000 grant to Heart of the Hamptons, $30,000 grant to Bridgehampton Child Care and Recreational Center, and then some smaller grants to some other food pantries. And
It's a total of $75,000.
so I'd like to be added Sunday.
I added you, yes.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 1034 of 2023, co-sponsored by Supervisor Schneiderman, Councilwoman McNamara, Councilman Martell, and Councilman Bouvier, or the board. Resolution of adoption to develop a Town of Southampton large whale emergency response plan.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 1035 of 2023, 2023 second notice to bidders for Ford F-250 Super Duty with Western 8-foot plow.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. Well, let's vote, and I just want to say one thing about the prior resolution, but all in favor?
Aye.
Approved. On that development of that large whale emergency response plan, I don't know how long that will take. Hopefully, we'll get started during the time that I have left as supervisor. If not, I'm happy to confer, having been involved with a number of these. So some of the concerns
So you can be a consultant?
from, no, just voluntary, but like some of the issues we've had in the villages and with the disposal and with leaching oils and things like that.
We have your phone number.
Smells, I'm pleased.
Smells?
Smells. Well, we have, no, these.
I'm just happy that you're an expert in the smells.
No, well, there are real issues.
Guess you never forget
with-
that smell.
With the
No,
dome.
actually, you don't.
No, I got the call from Oakland's in this one particular about whether Stephanie could actually operate her business because of the foul odor, because we brought the whale up upwind of her. Anyway, my point being that there's a lot of things to consider in making these decisions, and I am happy, I'm offering my expertise voluntarily if need be. All right. Enough said. We are on 1036 of 2023 notice to bidders for Ford Police Interceptor Utility.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 1037 of 2023 adopts the 2024 budget process schedule.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 1038 of 23 amends the 23 adopted budget for Bridgehampton and Sagaponack ECD.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 1039 of 23 amends the 23 adopted budget for the Building and Zoning Division overtime.
Second?
Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 1040 of 23 amends the 23 adopted budget for special events.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. 1041 of 23, authorized the return of funds deposited by the Division of Professional and Court Service Justice Court Assistance Program.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 1042 of 2023, deposits monies into escrow account for professional services in connection with the Lewis Road PRD site plan application.
Second?
Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved. 1043 of 2023, resolution authorizing increase in rates of pay for Southampton Town Justice Court reporters and interpreters, authorizing Southampton Town Justice Court Director to enter into a per diem contract with interpreter, and authorizing Southampton Town Justice Court Director to enter into amend per diem contracts with court reporters and interpreters.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 1044 of 2023 designates September 2023 as National Recovery Month in the town of Southampton.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Martell. Just on the motion, Cindy, can you say a word of what this is?
This is, we did this last year as well. It basically memorializes that September is National Recovery Month. It gives, raises awareness for substance abuse disorders and treatment. We have a bunch of municipalities have decided to go purple for this month in recognition. The town cupola is purple, the Big Duck is purple, I believe Southampton Village Hall is purple, the Sag Harbor Windmill. So it's really just to raise awareness and reduce the stigmatism of substance use disorder and mental health.
Okay, so we had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 1045 of 2023, co-sponsored with Councilman Schiavone, is the authorization of cost reimbursement waiver for the Galilee Church of God in Christ Violence-Free Block Party, which was held on August 26, 2023, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 1046 of 2023, co-sponsored with Councilman Schiavone, is the authorization of cost reimbursement waiver for the Watermill Village Improvement Association Annual Car Show on September 9th, 2023, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
event.
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 1047 of 2023, co-sponsored with Councilman Schiavone and Councilwoman McNamara, is an authorization of cost reimbursement waiver for the East Quogue Fire Department Seafood Party on September 16th, 2023.
Second?
Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 1048 of 2023, co-sponsored with Councilman Schiavone and Councilman Martell, is an authorization of cost reimbursement waiver for the Hampton Bays Lion Club 12th Annual Over the Bridge 10K and 5K Run Walk on September 16th, 2023.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 1049 of 2023, co-sponsored with Councilman Schiavone, is authorization of cost reimbursement waiver for the Flanders Fire Department 75th Anniversary Parade on September 30th, 2023, from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 2023-1050, I need to amend. I think the clerk has the amendments already, is to add the highway fees that weren't included in it. It's also co-sponsored with Councilman Schiavone.
I don't have the amendment.
Oh, you don't? I'm sorry. Here. Sorry.
Thank you.
So I'm just not clear what the amendment is?
It's to add the highway fees. The fees weren't included for
Alright.
highway.
I'll
So-
second the motion to amend.
So Councilman Bouvier is making a motion
Motion
to
to amend.
amend 1050 to include the highway costs to it,
The highway fees,
the
Fees to be
highway
waived,
fees,
The amount to be waived.
the waivers.
which are also being waived?
Yeah.
Okay, and then Second on the amendment is Councilman Scavone. All in
Correct.
favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. And now, John, you're going to make a motion to
To adopt.
approve as amended?
Yes.
Same
And
second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now,
Who was the second?
I'm gonna abstain from that vote.
I was, oh, the second was.
Would the clerk note Councilman Martell's abstention? Sunday?
Councilor Scavone.
Sunday, did you get the abstention?
Yes, I got the, I'm sorry, there was a couple things going on all at once. Okay, so I have
Who was
the
a-
abstention, John was the second, and who was the?
No, it was
John
John.
was
I
the
I
mover.
was,
John moved it, right?
I moved it.
So
And Tommy
Excellent.
John was.
Tommy
Thank you
John
for
was the
clearing that.
second on approving the amended resolution. Then I made a motion to approve the amended
And it was the
resolution.
same.
The same second.
And
Same second.
Councilman,
Oh, was it?
Councilman Martell
Abstained.
abstained.
Abstain.
Got it,
So it was 4 ayes, 1 abstention.
thank you.
All right, Town Board Resolution 1051 of 2023, co-sponsored with Councilman Bouvier, waive showmobile fee for Live Your Core Foundation fundraiser.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
I approve 1052 of 2023 part-time salaries.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 1053 of 2023 accepts disability retirement of a police officer from Southampton Town Police Department.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone, all in favor?
On the motion, if I could.
Yeah.
Peter was a great asset to the police department, even in his role going forward. He was very active in the civilian academy and the youth academy, and was really a big asset to Lieutenant Ralph and the department in his role with her. So he did a lot with our kids.
So, yeah, so I didn't mention the name, but yeah, this is Officer Peter D'Ancona,
Mhm.
and it's a disability retirement.
He will be missed.
So, yeah, we certainly wish him the best in his retirement, even though it's unfortunate circumstances. All right, so we had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. 1054 of 2023 accepts resignation of a planner in land management.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 1055, 2023 accepts resignation of a planner trainee in land management.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 1056 of 2023 terminates an employee in the town clerk's office.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 1057 of 2023 appoints Diane
File.
File, thank you, Diane File,
Yes.
to office assistant position in town clerk's office.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 1058 of 2023. Oh, and congratulations to Diane. 1058 of 2023 appoints Joanne Wilner to senior office assistant position in police department.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved, and congratulations to Joanne. 1059 of 2023 appoints Megan Sullivan to Animal Control Officer 1 position in public safety.
Second?
Seconded by Councilman McNamara. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. Congratulations to Megan. We did 1060, we're up to 1061 of 2023. Authorize attendance at accreditation council meeting.
Second?
This police, for Howard Cobb, can we get the liaisons to the department? Tommy John, did you want to second this, or it doesn't matter?
I'm fine with the second, thank you.
Is that okay, Cindy?
It's fine.
All right, seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. 1062 of 2023, co-sponsored with Councilman Bouvier, is notice of public hearing to community solar installation, for community solar installation at North Sea Landfill, 1370 Majors Path in North Sea.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 1063 of 2023, notice of public hearing to consider enforcement action at 56 Cypress Avenue in Flanders, New York, co-sponsored with Councilman Martell.
Second.
Second by Councilman Martell. This hearing would be September 26th at 6 PM, live and via Zoom. All right, we have motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 1064 of 2023, also co-sponsored with Councilman Martell. Notice of public hearing to consider enforcement action at 11 Flanders Road, Riverside.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell.
Also on the 26th.
Again, this is September 26th at 6 PM, also via video conferencing. All right. So we had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 1065 of 2023, co-sponsored with Councilman Martell. Notice of public hearing to consider enforcement action at 229 Flanders Road, Riverside.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell, again, September 26th, hearing at 6 PM. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 1066 of 2023, co-sponsored with the entire board. Is a notice of public hearing to consider the historic landmark designation of the structure known as the West Hampton Beach Performing Arts Center, located at 76 Main Street, Village of West Hampton Beach.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved. 1067, and that hearing is Tuesday, October 10th at 1 PM. So it's a daytime meeting, and it will also be via Zoom. All right, so 1067 of 2023, it's a resolution to accept open space in connection with the planned residential cluster plan and density incentive subdivision map of Zarabi Family Trust, site approved by the Southampton Town Planning Board on March 10th, 2022.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 1068 of 23, Bridgehampton Beach Erosion Control District Beach Renourishment Secret Coordination.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. 1069 of 2023, North Sea Beach Colony Beach Erosion Control District Beach Renourishment Secret Coordination.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman McNamara.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 1070 of 2023, Sagaponic Beach Erosion Control District Beach Renourishment Secret Coordination.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. Councilwoman McNamara, you're next.
Town Board Resolution ID 44197, co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone. Accept intermunicipal donation of a motor vehicle for the police department from the Village of Quogue.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Aye, approved. Cindy,
I'm getting there.
number 3.
Town Board Resolution ID 44202, notice of public hearing to accept deed of dedication in connection with the subdivision known as Map of Chicken Briar, Eastport, co-sponsored with Supervisor Schneiderman.
Yeah, I don't know why it's co-sponsored with me, but fine, I'll co-sponsor it.
Come on, Chicken Briar?
Chicken Briar, yeah. So that is, when is that hearing?
I think it's the October 10th. October 10th at 1.
October 10th at 1
1
PM.
o'clock.
Okay. Did somebody second? I'll second, I guess. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. All right, 44203, it's warrant number 17, capital number 17, CPF number 17, and payroll liability.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution ID 44208, authorize disbursement from the Blight Mitigation Fund for site cleanup at 308 Waverly Avenue and 21 Private Road in Riverside.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. We have 15,000 in the blight mitigation fund, I guess. Huh?
Yes.
15,700. Okay, there's a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. All right, that gets us to the end of our agenda. Is there any other business? Hearing none, I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are.